did not bring in my class.
Oh.
Okay.
Going to see the kids.
That's fine, Joe. Yeah. You gotta lean like this.
All right, good evening, everyone. It is 7 o'clock, Gardner, Kansas. Call the meeting to order. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we've got a full house tonight. Good to see. Okay, so we have a couple presentations, and the first one is a presentation of the 2024 Audit and Annual Comprehensive Financial Report. Matt, did you want to come up and start that?
Good evening, Mayor, Council. This is the 21st year the city has prepared an annual comprehensive financial report. To date, all 20 previous annual financial reports were award winners. In our continued pursuit of excellence, this latest annual report will again be submitted for a Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting for the Government Finance Officers Association. The city's independent auditing firm, Allen Gibbs & Hulick, completed the audit of the 2024 financial records. Staff is pleased to report that the auditors again issued an unmodified opinion regarding the city's financial practices and reporting for its basic financial statements. An unmodified opinion is the highest possible opinion. Brian Holst, Vice President Assurance of Allen Gibbs & Hulick, is here tonight to present the audit.
Thank you, Matt.
Hello.
Hello.
So as Matt mentioned, we're here to talk about the 2024 financial audit. Before we get started, I will point out that we did not have a federal awards audit this year, so there's no single audit reports again. Probably we'll have one next year, but nothing for this year. So all that's in your board packet today is our governance letter and then the government auditing standards internal control report. The internal control report does have basically a summary of what's in there in the governance letter, so I'm not going to go over that twice, just going to kind of go through the governance letter, and then obviously if you have any questions, we can go through that. So the first thing I always like to talk about is that you did have an unmodified opinion, which Matt mentioned. You can find that on pages 1 through 4 in your financial statement if you wanted to look at it. It is relatively similar to last year. Essentially unmodified means we didn't have to add anything to it to talk about problems or issues that came up during the audit. There is one additional paragraph in there this year, and it relates to implementing the compensated absence standard, which I'll talk about here in a minute. If you were here last year, we kind of knew that was coming. We talked about it needing to be implemented this year. There's essentially a paragraph in there that says because you implemented that, you had to change some of your beginning balances as if you had been treating compensated absences that way all along. And so really it's just kind of pointing to the paragraph that talks about that and why there's a change. As far as the governance letter, on the first page, there's a couple things on there that talk about the timing of our engagement letter, the timing of our planning letter that we sent out. And the last sentence in the planning letter section is that we made no significant changes to the scope or timing of our procedures. And while that doesn't really seem like a super important sentence to talk about while we're here today, I kind of wanted to take a minute to point that out, because really what that means is that your finance department is well prepared. They have things ready when they say they're going to. They're responsive when we're here to do the audit, and so we can get through things smoothly and efficiently. And while we always tend to focus on kind of the negative things in some of these presentations, I did want to kind of take a minute to just point out that they are well prepared when we're here, and things do go very smoothly through that process. At the bottom of page 1 then is when we talk about what new standards were implemented this year. So that's where we talk about the compensated absence standard, which is Governmental Accounting Standards Board Statement number 101. For those of you not familiar, essentially what you've done in the past is just record vacation and sick time that's going to be paid out upon separation from the city, so either retirement, termination. And what changed this year was any of that sick time that's not paid out at separation from the city, now you have to estimate how much of that time employees are going to use and add an additional liability for that. So if somebody has 100 hours at the end of the year, they're going to use 40 hours in the future, you book that additional 40 hours of time as a liability at year end, as opposed to just what you would write them a check for when they leave. So essentially, it doesn't really change the accounting for anything. It doesn't change, how time is accrued. There's just a little bit more of a liability recorded now than there was in the past. And that those numbers are on there. It was about $200,000 for governmental activities and about $100,000 for business type activities. So about $300,000 total of additional liabilities added to your statements because of implementing this standard. So again, then it shows the emphasis of a matter paragraph that we put into our opinion. Page 2 then talks about a lot of the estimates that are inherent in your financial statements. The example I always give is that things like cash, we can send a letter to the bank. They tell us exactly how much money you have in the bank at year end. There are some significant numbers in your financial statements, though, that aren't sort of a bright line number like those. The 3 we have listed are your other post-employment benefits, your pension liability, and your allowance for uncollectible receivables. The first 2 of those are based primarily off of actuary amounts. So we're looking at the actuary reports, we're looking at how they're allocated between the funds in the city. And then for the third one, the allowance for uncollectible receivables, that's basically based off of historical collection rates for those receivables. We also then talk about audit adjustments that were posted. There is one adjustment for about $750,000 that was identified as part of the audit. That related to a contractor invoice that ultimately wasn't paid until March, but it was for December work, so it just kind of got missed in the accrual process. There was an audit finding related to that, which we'll talk about here in a second. There were no other finding or adjustments that we noted, and no uncorrected misstatements that we're aware of. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit to page 4 in the governance letter, which is where we talk about internal control matters, because the internal control matter is related specifically to that $750,000 adjustment. Typically, when we're looking at whether or not there's an internal control comment that we want to make or go over with you when we're here, a lot of that is based off of the quantitative factor of what we found, but also some of the qualitative factors that we're looking at that go along into the internal control process. And unfortunately for this one, the quantitative piece of it was so big for the wastewater fund that there really wasn't a whole lot of analysis on the other side of things to sort of offset that. So it feels a little weird to say, hey, we found one entry, so here we are with a finding, but because of the size of it, that's ultimately what made its way into the report. I will say in the internal control letter that we also have in the agenda packet, that has a little more about the planned corrective actions. It also has the estimated completion date, which you'll note was last month, because the finance team has already put stuff into place. We've already talked to them about it, looked at it. They've already got a couple of new processes and procedures to hopefully correct this moving forward. So while it did make its way into the governance letter, while it is a finding, I don't know that it's something that you need to lose a lot of sleep over at night. I think there's always human error in some of these processes, and I think your finance team is already well on their way to making sure that they don't have a repeat issue next year. Which kind of goes on to then some of the qualitative components of an audit. I always like to talk about that because when people think about an audit, they think about the numbers. I'm an accountant, I think about the numbers, everybody thinks about the numbers, but we do look at a few other things besides that when we're going through the process. We look at your policies and procedures, your internal controls. We look at whether or not you're recording things in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. We look at all the disclosures in your financial statement, even the ones that don't have numbers in them, to make sure that they're complete and accurate. And of course, we look at the estimates that we already talked about, which kind of leads me to what we talk about on page 3 of the governance letter, which is where we would talk about any other observations that we have as part of the audit process. And that's where I'm happy to report that we didn't have any issues, disagreements, difficulties or anything in dealing with management throughout the course of the process. It was a very smooth audit overall. So I'm happy to report that there's nothing to discuss there. The last part of our governance letter then is kind of what I consider the FYI section. These are things that we feel are important to go over with you just to kind of keep an eye out for, but they're not things that we put in the letter because of your audit specifically. So the first one there is electronic fund and wire transfers, which is something that we've really seen over the last 2 or 3 years kind of become more of a fraud risk for entities. And you can kind of think about it from internally, it would be maybe somebody setting up a real vendor, but with fake bank information, so it's not going to that vendor. Or externally, somebody posing as a vendor trying to get you to change their banking information so that you send them the money instead of the actual vendor. And so as you can imagine, that's kind of hard to identify because if you're just looking in your accounting system, it might show up as a normal vendor of the city, just the bank numbers that it's going to are not the actual bank account of that vendor. I would say in general, we've seen more of an issue with that for our corporate clients than our governmental clients because governments tend to have more ACH and wire type transactions. So they've been well aware of these types of things for several years. Whereas some of our corporate clients that maybe have a few a year don't really have a process in place to make sure that they're handling those correctly. The next one's cybersecurity risk, which isn't really going away. The last 4, 5, 6 years, it's just kind of been ramping up with ransomware attacks and everything else. So again, just something to stay vigilant for. And then the last one is a comprehensive policy and procedure comment. And really that's focused on, with technology changing, with work from home policies and other things, just making sure that your policies and procedures are changing with all of those other changes in your processes. With that said, that was all specifically I had to go over today, but I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any before I take off.
All right, thank you very much. Council, do you have any questions?
I just have one, and that had to do with the finding.
Okay.
I don't remember the last time we had a finding on an audit report. It's been many, many years. That's owing to our wonderful finance staff.
Yeah.
But I did have a question about that. I know that in the private industry world, if you have an audit finding, sometimes it can affect ratings and things like that. Do you see anything like that in this case?
Not really. I think more often than not, I think grantors typically are who focus more on that as opposed to rating agencies. I think if you had the types of things that maybe said we were unsure about balances or we weren't sure that things were recorded correctly, that's what maybe the bond agencies might be more concerned with because then they can't really rely on your financial information. I think because you ultimately got that posted, your financial information in your report is still accurate, so they can still rely on that. It was really just, it took an extra step to get there that got caught in the audit process.
Yeah, there's a difference between a material misstatement and malfeasance.
Right.
And in this case.
Yeah, so I think, if we were issuing something other than, say, the unmodified opinion, I think that would be a much bigger concern to anybody that was using your financial statements. I don't know that this one in particular is probably going to raise any concerns from anybody.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Report. Yeah. And thank you to the finance team for always doing a great job. Always. Okay, our next presentation, speaking of finance, 2026 budget presentation. Matt, you're up again.
This is an overview of tonight's budget presentation. I'll start with the budget process, follow up on a couple items that council mentioned at the last meeting, and then go into mill rates, which is the focus of today's meeting, and then on to next steps. So the budget process started back in early March. We started with a year-end financial report. Then we had a budget retreat. Then in April, we went over outside agency requests in the capital improvement program. At the last meeting, we talked about budget highlights. Then here tonight, we're focusing more on the mill levy. And then on July 7th, it'd be council to consider a resolution to exceed the revenue neutral rate and setting a public hearing. The public hearings and approval process will vary depending on the revenue neutral rate decision. So going back to the last meeting, there was some discussion on Project Grad. And I believe the police chief mentioned that she had seen in other jurisdictions that special alcohol and drug fund had been used for that program. And we looked into it, and we think it's a good use for that fund. We ended 2024 with $233,000 in fund balance. We're projecting to end 2025 with about $280,000. Our annual revenue in that fund is about $86,000, and we have projected expenditures around $38,000. So on an annual basis, we're adding $40,000 to $50,000 each year to that fund balance. It's staff's recommendation that we move the funding from for Project Grad from the general fund to the special alcohol and drug fund. Our current funding level is $3,000. There was also discussion on a couple different initiatives that we could basically fund using Economic Development Fund, which is transient guest tax. We ended 2024 with $645,000. We project to end 2025 with $653,000. On an annual basis, we get about $373,000, and then projected expenditures are around $347,000. This is also showing a breakdown of what's currently being funded out of that fund. It includes the Chamber of Commerce, potentially a retail recruiter called Retail Coach that's on the agenda later tonight. And that'd be added, if it's approved by council, we'd add it to 25 and 26 budget. $25,000 for the Small Business Assistance Program, $45,000 for a recreation event promotion, $25,000 for the Gardner Historical Museum, and then we have a transfer of about $171,000 to general fund.
Matt, can I ask really quick, what is that transfer? What is that?
Basically, with the Southwest Johnson County EDC no longer existing, we have basically staff performing a lot of those duties, and it pays for part of the salary for several positions. This graph shows basically the Economic Development Fund forecasted out 5 years. As you can see, we have a capital project for turfing the softball and baseball fields. It shows what the debt service would do to that fund, and it would start drawing on that fund balance over time. Now, I'd expect the revenues to eventually grow to match the expenses in the out years, but it would eat up a lot of that fund balance. But you do have some room to do some of the things that you discussed. It's just maybe not as much as you had thought earlier, but when we have that new hotel come online, it should generate enough revenue to come close to for the debt services. This is a breakdown of the general fund 2025 revised budget. So in one column, I show the 25 original budget, and what we're proposing is a revised budget and the difference. It's an overall increase in expenditures of 0.9%. You can see most of it is in administration, and that's primarily due to the IT switches project. We have a lot of IT switches that are we purchased back in 2015. We've been trying to replace them over time. They're starting to fail. So it's our recommendation that we replace them all this year. It could impact our operations if they start to fail. We also added a new deputy city administrator position. And then there has been a little bit of increase in benefit administration costs. And if you look at transfers out, there was originally a budget transfer of $286,000. That's gonna be eliminated for 25. It was going to the VERF fund. And then there's also a reduced one in 2026. And that's because we actually ordered that public works, I believe it's a sweeper, a year early. So that hit 2024 when it was originally going to be scheduled for 2025 replacement. This is a summary of the 2026 budget as compared to the 2025 estimate. It's an overall increase in expenditures of 2.4%. If we were to compare the 26 budget versus the original 2025 budget, it's about 3.3% increase. Most of this is due to merit and step. We're recommending a 4% merit and step. And then there are also some police operations equipment. That includes things like MDTs, our first full payment of Axon equipment, and then some couple different line items related to red dot optics. This graph shows the general fund forecasted out 5 years. We've been through multiple rounds of budget cuts already for the draft 2026 budget, approximately $700,000 for general fund, $200,000 from other funds. These were necessary in order to develop a budget that met target fund balance levels. The city has a target fund balance of 30% of expenditures. The fund balance at the end of 2024 was 40%. It's projected to drop to 33% by 2026, and then 23% by 2030. For years, we have been intentionally spending down our fund balance towards our target fund balance. We are quickly approaching that target. As we approach it, we need to take steps to ensure that we come in for a soft landing. In other words, we need to be mindful of operating deficits over the next few years. We received new valuation estimates this morning. The estimate's 7.2% increase. Please note, we're expecting this to be lowered. There's about $2.9 million in assessed valuation that's being appealed. Keeping a flat mill rate and capturing valuation increase would increase property taxes on the average Gardner single-family home by $3.48 per month. For the purpose of this analysis, we assume the average Gardner home appraisal is about $345,000. The revenue neutral rate would decrease the mill rate by 1.213 mils. A mill is worth approximately $369,000. The revenue neutral rate would limit property taxes to the same dollar amount as a prior year. It would also lower allocations of motor vehicle tax and county sales tax for future budgets. So every year, council usually wants to look at a couple different scenarios on if we lowered the mill rate, what that would do to our fund balance. So this is just focused on the general fund. And the base scenario is the flat mill levy scenario. That was what was modeled out in the graph earlier. It's 2026 ends at 33% fund balance, 2030 ends at 23%. The revenue neutral rate scenario would basically lower that to 30% for 2026, and then 13% at the end of the 5-year forecast. It would create about a monthly savings of about $4.01 per month for the flat mill levy scenario, compared to the flat mill levy scenario. If we reduce the mill rate by 1/4 of a mil, it would result in about 83 cents monthly savings to the average homeowner. But in 2030, we would end at about 21% fund balance. If we reduce by 1/2 a mil, at the end of the 5-year time frame, we end up with a 19% fund balance, and the monthly savings would be about $1.65 compared to the flat mill levy scenario. Now we have 2 tax levy funds. We also have the bond and interest fund. Current policy is to maintain approximately $10 million in project or fiscal capacity. When I say that, what it means is we have enough fiscal capacity and bond interest to cover debt service if we turn around and issue a $10 million principal amount of a 10-year GO bond. We have a project planned in 2026 that would actually use some of this capacity. It's 175th Street and Clare Road improvements. The overall project cost is about just under $15 million. We're anticipating about close to $1 million in initial development revenues. And then it's our recommendation to utilize some of the street excise tax we've been collecting over the years, about $2.5 million, to transfer over to pay down that project cost. That would get down to about 11.5 project cost. And then due to the nature of the improvements, we're basically talking about upgrading an arterial. We can go out 20 years on a GO bond for that type of improvement, which would then stretch that capacity further. And one of the reasons you'd also want to do that is this is to support multiple commercial areas that are going to continue to develop. As we get those development revenues, we'll get CID revenues, origination fees, excise taxes. All those will help replenish that fiscal capacity. Here's a list of potential projects that we discussed in the past. Most of these are development driven. Break and access near US 56 and I-35 interchange. US 56 and I-35 interchange improvements. We'll know more about that when KDOT finishes their study. North Clare Road, New Trails Parkway extension. That would be that kind of reverse frontage road that we've talked about on the other side of the interstate. Moonlight Crossing and interchange, that's related to that BNSF study that's currently ongoing. Gardner Road South, and then the destination downtown plan. If we were to reduce mills in the bond and interest fund, I ran a couple different scenarios. The base scenario is the flat mill levy scenario, where we keep the flat mill levy and we have basically $5 million in capacity left. That's because we're carrying costs for 175th Street and Clare. If we do the revenue neutral rate scenario, basically lowering that 1.2 mils all in bond and interest, it would basically wipe out our project capacity in bond and interest. If we reduced a quarter mil, it would drop basically that capacity from $5 million to $4 million. If we reduced by half a mil, it would go from that $5 million down to $3 million. I'm looking for council's direction on both Project Grad, any comments you have on the Echo Dev Fund, and then also looking for the proposed mill levy to include on the resolution for consideration on July 7th. Public hearings would then follow in either August or September.
Thank you, Matt. Okay, council, looking for direction? Steve? Look ready to speak.
You know, I come a little to prepare on this little discussion. All right. So we are here every single year and we have the same discussion about holding the line on the mill levy. The problem is holding the line on the mill levy is going to impact some people more than others. It says a 7% valuation increase. I know personally I got an 18% valuation increase. That comes out to $50,000 on my house. So my impact is going to be significantly larger than the amount of money that's going into the, that's on your presentation. I am sure that I am not alone. Typically, when these kind of valuation increases happen, they happen on the higher end, the hardest. And so I'm not, I think that there's going to be some people that are going to end up getting hurt a lot more than others. Personally, I think that we need to take a haircut. I think we need to take a haircut of at least $250,000. I would love to be able to go higher than that, but I know also that we have budget realities and ongoing projects. I know that we've also been working the grant angle very, very aggressively, and I think we need to continue that. But at some point, we're going to have to translate that additional commercial development into dollars that are coming in and take the burden off of the residents here. And I think that we need to start with this budget. We need to start with this year. We need to lower that mill levy at least $250,000. And I would say lower it $250,000 on both the general fund and the bond and interest.
Steve, I tend to agree with you. One of the other few points that needs to be considered is seniors.
Mm-hmm. We're pricing them right out of the county.
And I'm in that group, so I'm kind of speaking for myself as well. My wife and I live on a fixed income. And when taxes and insurance go up on your home, it comes at the expense of something else. And it's getting to the point to where people are getting taxed and insured out of their homes. And we need to really kind of try to figure out some way to, Steve, I agree with you, we need to try to figure out a way to hold the line.
We've got to really aggressively, we either redouble our efforts on the retail side, on the commercial side. That's why I'm glad I saw that, the retail coach on here, because I think that's going to go a long way towards helping with that. But we have to hold the line. At some point, we can't just continue to pass the entire valuation increase on our residents. It's going to kill them.
Yeah, Steve, I would tend to also agree with that, because if the more we can shift the burden to corporate, and travel, and with other entities, and relieve the burden of our homeowners. That's a huge thing.
Anyone else have? Mark, would you like to say?
Wow, Mark.
That all sounds great. What's the plan?
I just told you the plan. Lower them.
No. Tell me where you're cutting $93,000.
What do you mean? What this is coming out of, we aren't changing the budget at all.
You
We're,
want to lower it a $250,000.
yes, we do.
Okay, so where do you want that $93,000 to come from? I know where $3,000 could come from.
Well, that 3,000 is being moved to another fund, so it
Shouldn't
doesn't
be there
matter.
either, but that's a side. We'll talk about that in
Okay.
a second.
Yeah, I guess.
But where do we want the $90,000 to come from? I'm not opposed to taking $90,000 somewhere, but where are we taking it from?
We'll find it. We'll figure it out. Well, I'm not about to let that get passed over to our citizens. I'll go through that with a fine-tooth comb. I'm sure we could find 93,000 together, Mark. You're a numbers guy too.
I am. Matt, if we take a quarter now, in 3 years, how much do we have to raise taxes? I know you can't tell.
I'll have to model that out.
But-
yeah.
Our general fund will
Yep.
be, in 2 years, will be
21.
less than 30%. We will be raising taxes in 2 years if we even hold the line.
That assumes 2% growth.
Right, we always assume conservatively.
Yes.
Right, so we need to sit and hold tight a little bit longer for some of these developments to kick out some more money.
I can't agree with that. I'm not going to vote for a budget that's going to hold the mill levy at where it is. I'm not going to do it.
I'm fine to cut it if we can find where to cut it and not affect
Fine, we'll find it.
grabbing those dollars from those developments.
We have a month to do it. Let's do it. You and I can sit together.
I will do
Well,
that.
We'll get a spreadsheet. We've got all the information. Matt has a trove of information he's willing to share with us. Let's get it done. I'm not interested in passing this valuation increase to everybody.
Steve, I would gladly be part of that process.
Well, it can't be because then we'd be violating our
Yeah.
Kansas Open Meetings Act.
That's fine.
That probably wouldn't work too
Throw it
well.
out.
I'm just making
Bernie
sure.
almost dove in.
Died from the coma.
Yeah.
I think that I'm interested in hearing proposals to lower the quarter mill, but I also want us to be aware, when we had this discussion about the sales tax,
Mm-hmm.
and we talked about what we can use that sales tax money for, we're leaving out our arterials and any sort of projects associated with that.
I understand
As we
that.
grow, it only gets worse.
I'm with everybody else, right? Everybody wants to cut taxes. We would love.
We have to.
I would
We have
love
to.
an R&R scenario. It doesn't work. And is it easier to budget a flat mill, like for a homeowner?
Mhm.
If we cut by a quarter of a mill, you save me 83 cents a month. But in 2 years, you have to raise it by a full mill because we are now at a 21% fund balance. And we have to go to our citizens and say, sorry, guys, this year we're raising it by a mill. Then what are we gonna do to our seniors? What are we gonna do to those homeowners that now aren't expecting it?
No.
That's
If
a
we-
hypothetical. That's purely a hypothetical.
Well, and
Well-
you're talking in hypotheticals as well.
We have
Well-
not raised mill since I became part of this council in 2013.
And if our target fund balance goes to 21%, we are going to have to raise a mill just to continue offering services to our citizens, which they enjoy.
You're not going to convince me to
No.
keep the mill levy where it is.
Did-
I'm just sorry. I'm not gonna. I'll vote for it.
A point of clarification, Matt. So you said for quarter mil, it is a reduction of 0.83 per month, correct? But that's still going to show,
It's still going up.
It's still going up.
it's still going to go up.
Yes.
I mean, it was going to go up $3.50, $3.48. Now it's only going to go up $3, right, per month.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's on a
Just
hy-
making sure I'm understanding.
Sorry to interrupt.
No.
That's on a hypothetical valuation. We have no control over the real estate market in this county. And what we're talking about here for our homeowners is a small piece or small percentage of their general overall tax bill, which is out of control.
Yep.
Property taxes in Johnson County have more than doubled in the last 5 years. We cannot keep doing that to our community. Can't. Because we're going to run people out of their houses.
We aren't doing that.
Well,
We're
we need to
raising
do
it
our part.
by $3, doubling it.
No, no, no.
And I'm not saying that we have to. I'm throwing out my opinion. I don't want to see us have to raise taxes in the future because we cut too much.
Well, Casey, we can continue to cut. We can continue to cut things that are unnecessary. Or if we have to get into a couple of things that people like in their services, we can give them a choice. Do you want this or that? I'm not, I ran on not being a tax and spend guy. And I'm not gonna, I'm gonna be with, Steve, I'm with you. I think we need to cut.
So I know that we were discussing, okay, what if we have to go to people for a 1 mil increase in their taxes? Well, if we have a large capital project that we want to bring to the community, even if it is like ramps for Moonlight Road, and we know it's going to cost about $4 million, or maybe a little more than that. Okay, give it to the citizens for a vote. Let them vote for it.
Yeah, let them have a say.
If they want to increase their property taxes to put a new access route on I-35, give it to them to vote for it, and that way they vote their own property tax increase. I don't like just having a property tax increase go into effect, just keeping it at the regular mill levy. It just increases the property tax. Whatever percentage the valuation of their house goes up, and my city property taxes are going to go up 18%. I don't care how many dollars that is. That's ridiculous. And so, yes, I do have a self-interest in this. But I also know there's a lot of people out here that are having the same kind of issues that we are. So, yes, if you want to have a large capital project, send it to a vote of the people. I can guarantee you, if they feel that the value of that capital project is worth the expense, they'll vote for it.
We just did that in February with the sales tax renewal. And the citizens of Gardner voted to retain that. They voted for it.
Possibly certain instances, but I don't think every large project we can go.
Community center,
I mean, a
I
position
guarantee
of
you.
obstinance.
Yeah.
Like that.
A position of obstinance and being derelict in our duty by saying, give it back to the people all the time. Why are we sitting here?
We're sitting here to represent the people that elect us here.
And they said, hey, we think you have a good idea on how to handle this. And if we bring to them, hey, you know, we're one of the few municipalities in the last 5 years that have cut, right? Cut rates. We did.
We've cut our mill levy
And
by
then
over
we've
30%.
Yes. So we've done that. Now we need to hold it,
Mark?
capture the growth, and then you can do something else. But if we do, can you imagine what the people say in 2 years when they go, you didn't think of this? I can.
I can show you minutes from every single meeting for the last 10 years.
And they're going to go, oh, you didn't look at this 2 years ago?
Yeah, we did.
We did.
I'm sure they're going to love that when it's a mill instead of 1.1.
Why are you bringing up a mill? The last
I'm
time
just
we
making
had
a number. It's gonna go
an
up.
increase in mills in this community was 2011.
Okay. I don't
This-
have
this-
a crystal ball.
This is about the most
Obviously,
conservative
you
governing
do,
body in the entire.
because you want to throw out
area.
everything that we have presented here that actually is based off something. Yes,
Mhm.
it's a projection. That's what we get. It's
2%.
a budget. It's a plan. But what crystal ball are you guys using?
Well, I'm using a growth metric that's better than 2%. I understand that's
So
very,
you want to
very.
count on the
conservative.
growth actually happening.
Well, Mark, here's.
Isn't that why we're doing all of this?
This isn't really a mill levy discussion. This is really an affordability for our people. In the last 5 years, regardless of what the mill levies are, the city portion of their property taxes has doubled.
No.
No.
No. Absolutely not.
I mean, when you take your,
No.
when you take your property tax, what we're taking out of that, the
No.
property tax in general has doubled over 5 years.
No, it has not. No, it has not. The valuations have more than doubled. Property taxes at the county level have more than doubled. We've actually decreased our
Well,
portion of the
that's the
property
point
tax.
I'm trying to make. fairly new, Steve. The point I'm trying to make is the tax burden on property owners in this county. We are taking a very small piece of that, but still, it's a small piece and it's going up. If your property went up 20% this year, your taxes went up 20%.
That's all well and good, but if we set it to 0%,
We're not.
set our mill rate to 0, guess what? That doesn't change Mike Kelly raising it to $2 billion next year.
Which
You're
will
not gonna
probably
affect that
happen
piece. That's not part of this discussion. I can't affect what happens over there.
I get it.
I can make a plan to hopefully not shaft our residents.
That's why I'm only
In a
asking
couple
for a
years.
1/4 mil.
I would be very curious when you two meet, what things that we can cut.
Mhm.
Because if we can find some cuts, I mean, but we've done it. We've made cuts.
I know.
Jim
That's
has
what
made
the
cuts.
whole-
We made $750,000 in cuts, yes, I know.
I would strongly object to sitting down and having council members going line to line with the budget. That's not your role. That's my job to do that. If you tell me to cut 93,000, I'll cut 93,000. But, you know, a lot of the things that we have that are really don't pay for themselves. Are we gonna cut Parks and Rec programs? We gonna cut the fireworks festival? We gonna cut hours at the pool? I mean, personnel, those are the things that are the big ticket items that we would have to cut.
And that,
Don't bring up the pool.
that was kind of,
Yeah, Mark will
that
be
was
all
kind of
over
what I was
that.
saying
Drain that
though,
thing.
is anytime we do a citizen survey, our citizens are happy with the services that we provide. If we start cutting the services that we provide, our Parks and Recs programs, which we have some amazing programs, and start cutting some of those amenities that people enjoy living in Gardner for, are they going to continue enjoy living in Gardner?
I would think that we're much greater than the amenities that we provide. Down here?
Steve, I would agree with. Here's the thing, Casey. If we continue to tax levels without giving some consideration, yes, everybody likes Parks and Rec. I'm not picking on Parks and Rec, please. But that's the people, the percentage of the community that actually uses that is smaller than the people that don't. And yes, it's true. I mean, there's a lot more people that don't have children that don't participate in Parks and Rec. We
And
pay for
this
it.
may
We
be the
gladly pay
last
for it.
year that we have this discussion in this context, because the state's gonna get involved in this. And when we meet across the county, we talk about this, the unknown of what the state's gonna do. And they're gonna cap, they're going to dictate what local governments can do. And that should be part of this discussion as well, is the unknown. And they tried last year, and from the conversations I've had with our representatives, they're gonna get something done this year
Mhm.
or next year in the legislative session.
Jim, what do you see coming at us?
Capping it, probably 4%.
4% increase?
Keep in mind, everything we cut or reduce affects some of the other revenue we receive as well. Right, motor
Cars
vehicle,
programs.
Cars programs. That's all based on, percentage.
Yep.
And we have, Gardner has one of the lowest mill levies of cities our size right now.
Yeah, unless it changed, Overland Park was the only other one that was lower.
In the metro, yeah.
They still
And across the
$100 million in
state.
cars.
Yeah.
Look, we can sit down and have a conversation. I'm all for it. The kicker here is, if we want to get, are we realistic or are we pedantic? Because if we want to talk about actually cutting things, this is like when Forbes sent out that thing years ago and you could cut the federal budget. I can balance the federal budget. There goes Medicare, there goes Social Security, I'll cut a whole bunch
All
of stuff.
right,
It's easy.
all right.
It's real easy. So do you want, I have no problem if you want to say we need to cut so that we can keep actual services, right? Roads, police.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need Parks and Rec at all. At all. It's gone. Right? That takes care of the pool already.
All right, you're
But-
talking about taking a bazooka instead of
I'm
a
just
fly
saying,
swatter.
No, what I'm asking is, when we look at this, how are you
Mhm.
going to do it without doing a bazooka.
Well, let's go on ahead and instruct our wonderful city staff and Jim and he's wonderful too, to come back with some options on.
I'm totally good with that. Jim, come back with a $93,000 reduction for us, and we can see what that $93,000 is going to affect.
Yeah.
But Matt, do you need some numbers tonight?
Well, either way, that exceeds our.
It's gonna receive.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna exceed the R&R, which is a pipe dream anyway. R&R is ridiculous, and we understand that.
It has to be because it doesn't ever include inflation.
Nope.
Is there a placeholder that you want me to put into that resolution, or just come in with like a blank number and we can just fill it in at that meeting?
Blank, and we'll paint by numbers.
Okay.
We will be exceeding, but come back with that information.
Or-
Is that fair?
No, yeah, I was also wanting to finish off the project grad discussion,
Yes,
just
let's do
because
that.
I
Yep.
think we're completely fine with moving it over to.
Yeah.
I would also like to see us finally respond to the request to increase it, whether we start smaller and let it grow, but there's still quite a bit of funds
We
left.
got
in that
$500,000
account.
in there right now. Yeah.
And as we've seen from that organization, they are willing to enter into teaching or having a program to educate against drugs and alcohol during the program. So fully endorsed by the fund and the requirements of that fund. So
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a valid use for it.
I think it's a valid use for it. And then we don't have to discuss this every year.
So how
We'll
much
still have
do we
to
spend?
discuss it every year.
I mean, they've asked for 6.
Okay,
That's a 50% increase.
100.
It's a 100% increase.
It was 3.
Okay,
Okay, should-
Over $250
depends on
million
how-
in that fund.
okay.
What was happening?
Should the alcohol and drug fund be used for programs to help reduce alcohol and drug abuse?
Yes.
Yes, 100%,
Yes.
right? So why Project Grad though? Why not MAD or SAD? Why
Why not?
Project Grad? Why one night of the year?
Oh, MAD and SAD are
You don't think
included.
there's a kegger every homecoming?
MAD and SAD are included.
What?
Well,
They're
No,
they're
that
already,
is one event so that they can party for one night, have some food, and get a $100 gift card as they walk out. If I know our test scores aren't very good in town, but I guarantee you those kids are smart enough to figure out that they can get drunk next weekend. So it doesn't really make sense for us to only focus on that one party. Number
it
one.
totally makes sense.
Number one. Number two, it doesn't belong at the city. If it's going to go any governmental location at all, this is a school function. Have it go to school board.
The city controls that fund.
No, it doesn't.
The alcohol.
The $3,000.
no, the
No,
alcohol.
the-
Yeah.
drug-
I'm talking about
Donation.
Project Grad.
But I'm talking about that fund in particular. If that organization wants to come in front of us and ask for that money, that's what they need to do. If MAD wants to do that, fine. If any other organization wants to do that, let them.
But why would we have a school function come here
It's-
and ask for money?
Because we have groups that ask us for money all the time.
Sure.
We have the cemetery. We have the Gardner Historical Museum. We have all sorts of groups coming and asking.
So why don't we help out the kindergartners that don't read so well?
Because they haven't been asked.
I mean, why don't we pay for books? Well,
I got no
why
issue.
Project Grad?
'Cause they
My
ask.
point is,
Citizens come and ask.
this is a poor use of these funds from this body. School,
In your
I
opinion.
don't agree.
yes, because
Mark.
the school board,
So I disagree.
furthermore,
I disagree.
the school.
It's a drug and alcohol-free event on a weekend when a lot of folks are going to be
Additionally-
drinking and doing drugs because in the absence of this event, you would have more drug and alcohol
You
use.
can't prove that.
You can.
I've got a question, guys. Listen to this. Why are we funding? Two-part question. Why are we funding this? You know, is it something we have to fund, or is this
No,
something?
no, it's discretionary.
It's more of a donation than
Yep.
Yes,
Yep.
exactly.
The school system gets many more dollars than we do.
Larger tax base.
It is a function that is put on by the citizens and the parents of our community.
So is prom.
It's not a school district function.
So is
Never has
prom.
been.
Do we not care about the kids on prom night? Because
Absolutely.
there's plenty that get drunk and die that night. Nationwide. It does not apply here. We are picking and choosing a onesie-twosie because somebody said yes 15 years ago. It's just a bad precedent. It doesn't make sense.
I don't know. I think it does make sense. I think it's a proper use of it. I think it's education. It's aiming to reduce
I don't think
for
it
a
educates
specific
anything.
event.
I think it allows them to party for one night and not go out.
I
That's sure, but
Have
where's
you-
the educational component?
Have you ever had a
They're
high
gonna-
schooler at Project Grad?
Have I what?
Ever had a high schooler Project Grad?
Had a high schooler? No, my kids aren't that old.
Exactly. I have. I've had 4 of them or 3 of them go through Project Grad, and they were. I think that it was a very safe event and very much a contribution to our community.
That has nothing to do with it.
It does. If they don't have the funds to put it on, then it won't be put on. And then
That is not the average taxpayer that you're forcing out of their house
excuse
with
me.
taxes to do.
This is a drug and alcohol fund. It's a use tax. It's not a property tax.
It is unless
It
we
is a
move it.
use tax, and
It is
we're
unless
Now
we
we're
move
talking
it.
about putting it over to the general fund those.
Which I don't think we have any disagreement with moving it.
Now, in order to move it, they are going to have to put on some sort of educational thing about drugs and alcohol at the event, or does that not matter?
I think
They're going to do
it's-
it anyway.
yeah, they're gonna do it anyway.
I think it would be helpful, but I think that Project Grad in itself achieves what the statute reads without the additional education. I think the hope is that people learn that they can have a good time without drugs and alcohol, and that's part of what we're supporting with the one night of events.
Yeah, and I think they've already said that they'll be happy to put on that.
So-
Yeah,
Program.
And this would be the first year of putting on some sort of educational process
Uh-huh.
in it as well, which is, go them. I
It'd
like
probably
that.
be more of a handout type
Yeah.
deal. than
Yeah.
it would be a presentation.
So my question
Like
is,
Dare-
do we,
Dare does the same
if
thing.
this is
Yeah.
good, is it good at 3,000 or is it better at 6,000? I mean, how
I
many,
think-
or is it better at 12,000?
To your earlier point, what percentage of our citizens is this helping? 200 students attend this and a city of 25,000. That's a very small percent.
It's not property
It's a
tax.
small percentage
Not
of our
property
fund.
tax.
We got rid of trash pickup for less than that.
No, we did not. It was over $120,000
No, I'm talking
last
about
time we
the-
did it.
Usage.
Yeah, it's order of magnitude higher, but yeah.
As the senior class has not grown in numbers in several years, am happy to keep the 3% or the 3,000.
3% is fine.
So,
3,000 out of the alcohol fund. That's my personal opinion. Where if the senior class was growing by leaps and bounds and every year they had a ton more students, then, you know, that's a different argument to come to.
Well-
The senior class has not grown in 5 years.
The largest portion of this expense, other than the $100 that they give to the kids, is food and beverage. Those costs have almost doubled in the last 7 years. I would say it's worth it to go to a higher amount.
And I'm not trying to discourage the Project Grad. And like you, I had 2 students go through
Mhm.
it.
Yep.
And went there, and I volunteered for 2 years.
Yep, me too.
And saw them throw out 50% of the food that they purchased.
They donated last time I was there, but that's,
When you see full pizzas going into the trash can, that argument of food cost is a hard pill to swallow.
Mhm.
Casey, to your point earlier, if we stay at 3,000 with a smaller class size, that's really not inflationary. It doesn't hit our citizens any harder. and it doesn't hit something that isn't already budgeted, and, you know, if Jim has to give it the axe of $3,000 to make the 93.
But it's
Yeah,
not
it's
coming out of the
different.
general
It's a
fund.
different fund,
I
so
know,
that's.
but
No.
it's just the point of it is I think that for $3,000, it's probably a worthwhile thing. But 6,000, doubling that, and looking at what we're having to try to do, no.
Do we have consensus to move it over to the drug and alcohol
We do
fund?
have consensus, I would imagine.
Yeah,
Oops, sorry.
I don't think there's anything that would keep us from doing that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Move it over. Do we need to decide on it for tonight?
I mean, if
It'd be
you're
nice.
not good with 6, then.
If there is consensus on the amount
Are you
also,
good?
that'd be helpful.
I just find it ironic that you guys want to give a haircut here to our actual taxpayers,
Yes.
but for a party, a literal party, you don't want to tell them haircut. Because you realize 20,000 of that is just for the gift cards out of the 45,000 budget. They couldn't give them $50 to show up?
I
I think it all.
Whatever.
It all goes
Sounds like
into
a
them,
minimum
so
wage, so-
attracting them to make.
Vote on whatever.
I think we just moved $3,000. Now we took $3,000 out of the general fund budget and moved it over to,
Alcohol.
there you go.
Yeah.
There's your haircut.
mean, I know you would love to see this at zero, but I mean, I don't think that's going to happen, Mark.
I don't think it belongs.
All right, I think we have
So
consensus.
is there a consensus on a move it? Is there a consensus on a number?
3,000, it sounds like.
3,000?
3,000.
3,000? I know, Mark, you're not.
I'm at a higher amount, so.
Okay.
Neither of the marks are on board.
Mark, yeah, either way. High and low.
Yeah, for exactly opposite reasons, yes.
Yes.
So I guess consensus is to move it over and keep it at the 3,000 level at this point.
Yep.
Thank you.
It's called a compromise.
By changing them.
Oh, yeah, we changed
changed where
something.
the money
We
came
changed the source.
And now, Jim, we only need 90,000.
See, I thought the 93 included. Steve, be sure when your cough is like a little further.
I'll be sure to mute it.
Was there any direction on the Echo Dev Fund?
It was fine.
I don't have a problem with the Echo.
Fine
Dev.
as is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, because what we're going to see is when the dual brand hotel comes online, we're going to see that transient guest tax go up quite a bit. So that should help
Do
to.
we have a date on that? Like an estimate on when they are gonna be open?
We still haven't got an official application. We're looking at concepts right now.
Okay.
Thank you for the direction.
Usually when those guys move, they move fast. So, yeah,
Well, I was just hoping they'd be up before the World Cup, but that's gonna be tight.
that's real tight now. I don't know if it's going to happen, but usually when they, as I said to Jim, once they move fast. I mean, they can get a hotel up pretty darn quick.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Yep. Thanks, Matt.
So, next we do have public comments. However, if you're here for the Horizon Point presentation, we'll talk about public comments before that actual agenda item. So, hang tight for just a little bit on that. We will get to that though. If there are members of the public would like to make comments about city matters or items not on the agenda or not on or on the agenda but not part of a public hearing, you can come forward now. Please limit your comments to 5 minutes or less. There is a 5-minute time clock on your left. Please come forward and state your name and address for the record. And the podium is now open. So seeing none report for now, we'll move to the consent agenda. Is there an item on the consent agenda you'd like to remove?
Nope.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Motion Shute, second McNear. We approve the consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Consent agenda passes. Planning and zoning consent. Would anyone like to remove item number 1? Is there a motion to approve the planning and zoning consent?
So moved.
Second.
Motion McNair, second Shoot. We approve the planning and zoning consent. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? And planning and zoning consent passes. Okay, so committee recommendation number 1. Consider adopting ordinance approving a rezoning from RUR Rural Agricultural District to RP2 Plan 2 Family District, and consider approval of the associated preliminary development plan for Horizon Point, a 78.15 acre, 246 lot, single family subdivision located on the southeast corner of West 175th Street and Four Corners Road. So a couple things before we start. I did want to give everyone an opportunity, if you have had contact with the developer prior to the meeting, ex parte contact. You want to let,
I've had an ex parte contact.
okay?
Only an email with no response and a text message, or not, a voicemail message that didn't respond to, other than say, we'll discuss it here.
Okay.
Yes, I have.
Okay. Now, I have as well. I've had contact. I believe you have not.
I received an email that I replied to that we'll discuss it here.
Okay.
Yep, and I also had an ex parte contact.
Okay. For the record. And then I also wanted to have, we have counsel here representing MVP Attorney Dumovich, is that correct?
Yeah, Dumovich.
Dumovich.
Yeah, that
I
was
got
good.
right. Yes, thank you.
Excellent.
And she was going to give just a really quick update regarding mineral rights and her opinion on that. And then we can move to some public comment after the presentation.
Yeah. So I'll go real quick, and then we'll have the presentation that goes into more detail on it. But in front of you, you have kind of a memorandum, is what I've titled it. Just kind of a summary of Kansas statute. When we're looking at KSA 12757, which is the statute that governs protest petitions, there are certain terms included in there that are not defined by the statute itself. So in that case, what we do is we look at plain meaning, and we have to interpret these meanings based on case law and other precedent. So an issue that we faced when we were discussing this was the quote, owners of record that is mentioned in here. So owners of record, as you'll see in the memo, was interpreted to mean, so I guess a background. Owners of record are people who have to sign the protest petition in order for it to be a valid petition. So owners of record under Kansas case law, as you'll see here, also includes people who have the mineral rights to that property. So it's not solely limited to surface control. It can also include those with any interest in that real property. And it has been held that a mineral interest is a interest in real property. So, especially if it's a non-severed mineral right, meaning that it is within the deed. So, and a lot of these homes out in this area have it non-severed. So it is still a part of that deed when you're getting your house. So we've interpreted that for this protest petition, the mineral rights owners would have to also sign because they have an interest in this land itself. And then also some people, when they possess a home, it is actually owned by a trust. It is in trust. And in that case, the signor on that has to be the trustee. So under Kansas law, you'll see the little snippet in there of when a property is held in trust, then the signature has to come from a trustee that says, I am signing as the trustee of this trust. Not just my name, Catherine Dumovich. It has to say, like, Catherine Dumovich, trustee. Like, the clear distinction. And that was actually a Kansas Attorney General opinion that specifically talked about rezoning protest petitions and how you need to tell the city that you're signing as a trustee. Long story short on this one, I won't bore you too much with all of the details, is because there's no explicit definition of an owner of record in this statute that governs protest petitions, we interpret it to mean mineral rights owners and trustees. So you have to fulfill those requirements when filling out the protest petition. And if it does not have those individuals on there and you do have mineral rights on your property and that person is not on there, then that is an invalid petition. So in this instance, there were properties where there are people who have non-severed mineral rights on these pieces of land, and some are trustees as well. And because they are not included on the petition, they were not valid. And so the threshold that has to be met for a valid protest petition, the 20% number that you'll find in 12-757, was not hit. That threshold was not met in this case. So we do not have to go through the process of a supermajority vote to pass this planning commission decision. If that was the case and it was a valid petition, that's where we would go to. But because of these reasons that I kind of listed out in this letter, we don't have to do that. So, and then we're going to do another presentation about the residences themselves and the proposed plan and stuff. But that was just my piece.
Okay.
Any
Thank you.
questions for me?
Any quick questions on that? All right, Dave, I believe you're leading this presentation.
Maggie will actually be
Oh, I'm
giving
sorry,
a
Maggie, I
presentation. We're
apologize.
good.
Hi, Maggie.
Good evening, Mayor and members of City Council. Before you this evening is the single-family residential development of 246 single-family lots, and it's approximately 3 dwelling units per acre. As you can see, the property is outlined in red. It's there at the southeast corner of 175th and Four Corners, and it is adjacent to the Lone Star development that is currently under development in terms of public improvements being installed. The property is currently zoned county rural residential and is proposed to be rezoned to planned two-family residential with the associated preliminary development plan that indicates all of the lots will be single-family residences. And I say that because the planned zoning requires that development plan, and the development plan is what governs what can be developed on the property. Just to orient everybody in this slide, north is to the left, and so on the right side is your south, and on the upper portion is the development under construction right now. The lot sizes average are around 8,500 square feet. There's a greater majority that are at least 60 feet wide as opposed to the minimum of 50 and 55. The blue area that runs from the top of the slide to down to the lower right is the stream corridor area. And a majority of the open space you'll see in the gray hatch is shown to be stormwater detention. So the green areas are what's actually usable open space. And that is primarily in the middle of the development. It's slightly under an acre. Right-of-way will be dedicated along both Four Corners and 175th Street. The applicant did request one deviation, and that was to install sidewalks only on one side of the street as opposed to two sides of the street. The Planning Commission report, our staff recommendation was to not approve that deviation, and the Planning Commission also recommended not approving that deviation. So what we would have is then sidewalks on both sides of the street. Wanted to just give you an idea of some of the proposed elevations to demonstrate that they are four-sided brick. The specific deviations related to the elevations will be something that's considered with our final development plan. That's when we get more into the specifics for the architecture. And before you this evening is just the preliminary development plan and preliminary plat. There were several people at the meeting where we had our public hearing on May 27th, and I've bulleted some of the concerns that were expressed relating to traffic, potential for road improvements, drainage and stormwater, lot width and size, and how it was not comparable to some of the people that were speaking at the meeting. There was also interest in maintaining the natural buffer and providing additional landscaping, and that's specifically in the area that I have dashed in sort of bright green, because that is where we've got larger lots that they are adjacent to. You can see along the 175th Street and Four Corners, there's a sort of a shaded green along those street frontages that they are providing a buffer from the backs of those residents to the street. And then lastly, there was just the general concern about loss of rural character. The Planning Commission did discuss these issues and added a condition related to providing a landscape buffer along the rear of the lots that I've shown in that dashed green. I usually wouldn't put the recommendation up here, but because we added the condition number 6, I thought it was important for everyone to be aware that we started with 5 recommended conditions. Planning Commission added that last one. The Planning Commission and city staff are recommending approval of the rezoning from rural residential in the county's designation to planned 2-family residential, and the associated preliminary development plan and preliminary plat, subject to this conditions outlined. The developer is present, and there's also a lot of other members from the community that are interested in speaking. I have available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Maggie. Okay, I have had some communication with Reverend Dr. McCleve, and as one of the people that would live in the area, and we kind of discussed, since there's already been a public hearing, we typically don't allow additional public comment after the public hearing. However, talking with council leadership, and we've had some discussion, and we're okay with allowing additional comments tonight. But however, please be, if let's just be aware that, if your point has been made, let's try to keep it with new information or new points when we come forward. But if you'd like to come forward, Doctor, and then if there's additional.
Mayor,
please state your name and address for the record.
Sure, I did have that in here. It's Dr. Brandon Van Ann. It's 17855 Four Corners Road, Gardner, Kansas. Mayor Winters and the governing body, first off, I just want to say I don't appreciate you letting Jim over here come in with lethal weapons at a public hearing to intimidate us. Real gun show. But thank you for allowing me to speak this evening. My name is Dr. Brandon Van Ann. I'm a business owner on Main Street, and again, a resident out at Four Corners. I come to you not just as an individual, but as the voice of many neighbors, rural residents, longtime landowners, and families who have built a life marked by peace, purpose, and stewardship in this part of Gardner. We are not against growth. We are for thoughtful, balanced, and infrastructure-ready growth. And tonight, I respectfully ask this governing body to slow down and consider the long-term consequences of approving this Horizon Point rezoning request in its current form. Recently, several of us met directly with the developer, Matt, and his team. I want to begin by thanking him. He was kind, respectful, and sincere in his efforts to allow to answer our questions. He even told us, unprompted, that he would rather prefer to see the development zoned as single family, not RP2. This is a powerful statement and one we urge the council to take seriously. He also told us he wants to support our concerns, and I believe him. I hope he will stand with us and with the broader Gardner community to ensure that zoning decisions and infrastructure standards reflect long-term wisdom, not short-term convenience. But what was perhaps most unsettling in that meeting was hearing the developer reveal that the city had pushed and offered setting aside of anywhere from 10 to 15 acres for commercial development right in the middle of rural buffer zoning. He declined, saying that commercial use doesn't reflect his values or the character of the surrounding area. That one detail speaks volumes. It exposes a pattern we've seen more than once: the city pushing for density, commercial development, and speed without fully engaging the people who already live there. This lack of transparency leads to an erosion of trust. That same lack of transparency showed up in the way our protest petition was handled. After weeks of effort, going door to door, educating neighbors, and hearing their concerns, gathering signatures in good faith, we were blindsided late on a Friday afternoon with vague concerns about its validity, stating that we must have signatures of mineral rights owners. When this is not a subsurface issue, but a surface owner issue. We want documented proof that these mineral rights owners were notified alongside the rest of us after the city had most of these documents for weeks. We had almost no time to respond before this meeting due to the last-minute validity concerns being dropped in our laps at the week's end. It felt like an effort to sweep our movement under the rug, to discredit the collective voice of residents simply asking for responsible development. In the process, some of us discovered that we were supposed to have mineral rights in the first place, that we were never properly transferred those at closing. We've already secured support from at least one of those mineral rights owners who have agreed to sign the petition and are working to get our rights deeded back to us appropriately. But the timing and manner in which this was handled was inappropriate and unjust to our community. Now, I'd like to talk about the heart of our real concerns: infrastructure, specifically traffic, drainage, and buffering. The Horizon Point project will bring 246 homes, generate over 1,000 daily vehicle trips at a minimum. The federal government says this would normally require immediate traffic impact studies and significant improvements: widened roads, turning lanes, intersection upgrades, signal lights, and pedestrian protections. But the traffic study submitted only analyzes current traffic levels. It says nothing about future conditions once the homes are built. That is not planning, that's a guess. And Horizon Point is not only development pressuring our infrastructure. The nearby Lone Star Prairie development, already under construction, will add another 188 single-family homes, with the first 66 already underway. Combined, these two developments will contribute more than 400 new homes and over 2,000 daily vehicle trips at a minimum on rural roads that were never designed to handle this kind of volume. Yet no comprehensive plan is in place to upgrade the infrastructure before the impact hits. The drainage study is equally short-sighted. It looks only at present conditions, not the effects of 246 rooftops, paved driveways, roads, and stormwater redirection. It fails to account for cumulative and ongoing effects of impervious runoff and surrounding properties, especially when you factor in both Horizon Point and Lone Star Prairie together. A friend of mine ran projections and stated that a 2-acre or more retention basin would be needed to appropriately direct runoff. I'd like to have this confirmed and know if current development comes anywhere close to this number. We're already seeing impacts. Neighbors have documented increased silt in a fishing pond, endangering the fish stock in that pond, a pond that took tens of thousands of dollars to restore, a pond that has brought joy and recreation to our families, friends, and even visiting citizens of Gardner for years. Others are cleaning up debris that has already begun migrating onto our rural land. I am currently preparing our land for USDA conservation designation in 2026, something that may be jeopardized by unregulated water flow from these high-density builds. That is why we are formally requesting that the city commission independent third-party studies conducted by qualified and respected engineering firms like Olson, GBA, or Trans Systems to access both traffic and drainage impact using future projections, not present conditions. In addition to infrastructure, we must address the quality of life and the visual impact this development will have on rural families who border it. One of those most heartbreaking examples is the Poor Hosh family, located at the end of the block. They will be completely surrounded, boxed in by dense subdivision on nearly all sides. Their sunsets and sunrises, once unobstructed and peaceful, will now be replaced by rooftops and headlights. Their rural peace replaced by car noise and backyard chatter. This isn't just a dramatic change in their view, it's a disruption in the way of their life. It also raises a growing concern about safety as we introduce high volume of new residents into formerly private agricultural surroundings. As more pets inevitably escape fenced or unfenced yards, rural families like ours will face the ongoing stream of uninvited guests, owners chasing animals across invisible boundaries, further eroding the privacy and trust we long cherished. How many of you live within a 1,000-foot buffer of this development? If you don't, I ask that you think and make decisions as if you did. We are demanding a real privacy buffer, both natural and manufactured. In our meeting, the developer stated that fencing would be the responsibility of individual homeowners, but this places no guarantee on privacy, aesthetics, or boundary protection. A more fair and community-minded solution would be for the developer to install a continuous high-quality privacy fence along shared property lines, which future homeowners could then connect to if they choose. This would provide immediate and lasting visual and privacy protection for current rural residents who never asked for dense neighborhoods to be built at their back door. And it would show that the city values blending communities with care rather than simply butting up against each of them. We are not asking for anything extravagant. We're asking for respect for the way of life we've worked hard to build, for the investments we've made into our land and families, and for a seat at the table in determining what Gardner becomes next. In response to some of the legal basis, under KSA 12757 F1, a protest petition must be signed by the owners of record of 20% or more of any real property proposed to be rezoned, or by owners of record 20% more or total of real property within the area required to be notified. The statute refers to real property, which in zoning context means surface interest, not mineral rights. Attorney General guidelines confirm this refers to landowners with recorded surface property within a certain radius, usually 200 foot inside city limits, 1,000 foot outside, with no requirement for mineral right holders. Case law support in Pretty Prairie Wind LLC versus Reno County, the Kansas Court of Appeals ruled that zoning protest petitions are governed by KSA 12757, not by general petition statutes. It emphasized that only record owners of land are eligible signers with no mention of minerals. Numerous municipal guidelines, example Kansas City, Overland Park, Johnson County, confirm that owners of real property within the notification area qualify to sign. These consistently refer to surface property excluding public rights of way. Only surface property owners, those listed on the deed, can validly sign a zoning protest petition. Mineral right holders are not required and typically would not count towards the required 20% land area. This aligns with statutes, ag opinion, case precedent, and municipal practices. After this statement, I have to return home to my children, but I want to leave you with this. Gardner has a chance here to choose purpose over pressure, partnership over profit, and community over convenience. Let us build wisely, let us grow with vision, and let us preserve what makes Gardner a place worth calling home. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Am I good? Yeah. Do we have the Arise Homes or?
Yes, it's the next slide.
There we go. Very good. Okay. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for this evening, for allowing us to be here with you guys. I'm going to try and roll through this. I know we've got 5 minutes, so I'm going to try and blow through this. We've got a lot of
You can
slides.
have a few more. I gave.
Okay, very good. All right, well, I'm going to try and move through quickly. We have a lot of slides, a lot of information. Happy to answer any questions. I also have my civil engineering team here as well. I appreciate Brandon. I appreciate our neighbors there in the county. We did have a great meeting over at Ground House. Just absolutely great individuals. So really appreciated that time that they took to get together. Absolutely very respectful. So let me just run through what we've got going on here, make sure. Okay, Arise Homes. We are Kansas City based. I lived in Gardner for a number of years, have actually been in and developing in and around this city since 2000, so here for about 25 years. My dad and mom have also lived in the city of Gardner. My father's here with me this evening. So as staff mentioned, we do our features of our homes. We are all brick, four-sided architecture. I did hear Brandon talk about skylines. We're all single-story houses, so we don't build any two-story homes. We are the developer and the exclusive builder of the community, so working to preserve those skylines. I did want to touch base really quickly. He mentioned about a perimeter fencing, privacy fence. We do have HOA requirements of fencing if people want to put those in their yards. we'll have, we don't put up privacy fences. They get old, they wear out, they fade, they fall over, they're eyesores. So but let me run through this. So some of our features of our homes, just very open concepts, very livable for young families, for empty nesters, all being single level living for the community. Locations, our regional office, we are currently in Overland Park. We are getting ready to finish construction on a new regional office right over off 95th Street. Some of our developments we're working within, Legacy Crossing, Stone Ridge, those are our developments. We're also building in Watercrest, Cedar Crest, Stonebridge Trails. So throughout Shawnee, Lenexa, Overland Park, so throughout Johnson County is where we're located. And then upcoming Horizon Point. This is some aerial pictures of some of our communities. Jump through that. Our biggest community right now is in Lenexa, Kansas, where we have about 209 acres there. 77 acres is what we're talking about here, 77, 78 acres for Horizon Point. There is the map area. We are proposing some trail systems through the open areas, through the stream area there, where it would allow also community amenity areas there in the green, a neighborhood monument with divided medians, so a nice monumentation there, and then perimeter landscaping, 4 corners and 175th. I am coming before you this evening. I am still asking that council have a discussion and consider sidewalks on one side. I want to tell you why. If you so tell me to say put them on both sides, we absolutely will do it. Not a deal breaker for us. However, where I like to see value is if we are doing a 5-foot sidewalk on both sides of the road, to me that becomes a concrete jungle. That's a lot of cement, that's a lot of maintenance for the city, it's a lot of additional cost for the city. They become city sidewalks, they break, they crack, they heave, they swell. So what I would propose is 5-foot sidewalk on one side of the road, if you would so entertain me, where we'd bring in what I would consider a major community amenity versus minor. It becomes down to dollars and cents of the community, where we spend it, where the council wants to spend it. This is the amenity area that I'm proposing, where we would have a splash and water park there in the bottom left in the blue, open activity field there in the green toward the top, bringing in a shade area structure in the center so you could view both areas, and then also bringing in a playground community area. We'd work very closely with staff. This would come back before you guys to see in a final plan approval with final locked-in plans for what this would be if you guys would so consider it. To me, putting in sidewalks on one side of the road that is 5 foot wide is plenty adequate. I absolutely agree with pedestrian walkability within a community. It's super important to us as a developer as well. However, I would like to allocate some dollars to a major amenity area versus what I would consider minor and the minimum of what we could kind of get by with. So if we were able to save those dollars and cents, we could reallocate those. So I would ask for that, still asking for it. If you guys so discuss, when session closes and says, hey, nope, put it in, then we'll do it. Sanitary sewer situation. The neighboring Lone Star development next to us, some things in the design process weren't sized quite right. What we have done is work very closely with staff to move what is a temporary lift station, very costly, very temporary for the city, into a permanent lift station, thereby eliminating the temporary lift station on the Lone Star property. So they, in that development, that would completely go away. So it would avoid that temporary. So, and if I jump back to this slide really quick, on 427, council approved that moving relocation and funds to make that happen. So jump through that really quick. We did meet with the neighbors. We listened to their concerns. I'm just going to go through this. You guys have seen this in packets. There are letters. I know you guys have seen them. You take the time to consider those. There are some things in there that I feel like are a little bit misrepresented, but I'm not going to go through these one by one. Tree areas to remain. One other thing that I am still asking for is point number 6 that planning added in. It was kind of a curveball for us at planning. I don't think planning knew what was out there, to be honest with you, and to be totally respectful as far as what's there as far as trees and trees that will remain in the area. They asked for us to put a couple extra, 2.5-inch trees in backyards, which we can do. Happy to do it. If you tell me to do it, we'll do it. I think it's a waste of money. I think it's imposing something upon the developer that's not required to create a screening area in those backyards. When you take a look at this is the hedgerow of trees that is there and that will remain in those areas. So that item number 6, you can see they're highlighted in the green area. Those are the trees. There's the stream corridor going down through the middle, which will remain, as well as the tree buffer that's in those areas. And those are the pictures. Those are literally looking, where those areas are, those arrows pointing toward that property line. Furthermore, rolling through, like I said, we did meet with the neighbors. We understand their concerns. There was a lot of things about, runoff, oil, those type of things. The regional detention is built and designed for the entire community. However, we'll be putting it in phase 1. So it goes in phase 1. We control it from day 1. We have to go through KDHE, through all the state permitting processes. We would not have to put this in. We could do temporary, but we are putting in the permanent situation because we do not want water flowing down to where it doesn't need to go. So we're designing with our engineering team from day 1. It's a lot of upfront money for us, but I think it's important and it preserves the area. As we roll through, like I said, I'm not going to hit every single one of these in the effort of time. Again, we talked about meeting with the neighbors. I want to talk very quickly. This is kind of my last major point. I'll kick through the rest of the slides, then I'll be done. The R2 zoning, in talking with Bob Case, with staff, with planning, I was thinking this was R1, maybe R1 with deviations. He said, no, I think it's more appropriate that we go R2. That's strictly a city call. We understand, you guys understand this is tied to a single family plan. We can't build multifamily even though you could within an R2 zoning. We cannot with this plan application. The neighbors had some real concern about that. I think we reached clarity when we met over there at Ground House when we talked about that. The reason for that for us, the homes that we build as the exclusive builder, we go deeper with our homes. So we're a little narrower. We're 60 to 62 feet wide on average on our lots. But we're more like 135 feet deep versus 115. As Maggie mentioned, we're on average between 8,200 to 8,500 square foot lots. That actually exceeds the R1 minimum of 8,000. So we're still hitting our square footage requirements. Here again, buffers surrounding the property, traffic concerns. The traffic studies are being done. It does look forward-looking. It does look at the impact. I know Brandon said, hey, it looks at the existing. It does not. The stormwater, it says, here's the existing. Here's what it needs to be for the future. For traffic, it's existing. Here's what it needs to be for the future. We are dedicating right-of-way. We are adding shoulders. We are adding turn lanes. So all those things are happening. Of course, we work with your city staff to make sure that that happens correctly. There again, this is just a slide talking about our square footage. Gardner's on R1, where Lone Star is at, and where we're considerably larger, still exceeding the R1 minimum requirement there. Here's some site distances, just to give you guys an idea from our neighbors who are directly right up against us. Those homes are approximately north to south, 200 to 375 feet apart. Straight back to the east, we're 600, 650, 720 feet. So there's a good amount of distance as far as sight line, the trees that are there, so there is nice screening. The oil operations that there, the oil wells are currently being removed. There's a major operation that's going on right there. And the runoff that's coming off of those, I could absolutely agree, it does not benefit the neighbors that is there today. So we're remediating it, pull those out, held to state standards, to city standards, getting the entire area cleaned up. Here's what it looks like today. When we come in, this is not what it'll look like. We'll have green grass, yards, beautiful homes in the area and for the community. Homes that will drive revenue dollars, that will bring in commercial dollars, that will drive dollars into the city of Gardner. Here again, just the operations. Had a presentation from our civil engineer. If you have questions, feel free to call Matt Crossup. I'm not going to address it right now in the sake of time, but the traffic's being addressed all the way through what we're doing, the drainage area, how that is substantially being improved, how we're actually exceeding requirements. So I'm just going to flip through that. Sorry, Matt, for blowing out your slides. Then again, happy, excited to be part of the city of Gardner. We are back in Gardner as a developer. We are back here as a citizen of the Kansas City metro area, having lived here, worked here, still owning property, still own property outside of this property in Gardner, for the past 25 years. So where the vision of where you guys are at, seeing good growth, housing options for residents, for people to come in, for all types, that's why we're back here before you guys today. I'm excited to see how Gardner's continue to grow. We're excited to be back and be part of the community. At large, we are very, very involved in and around the metro with Habitat for Humanity, Giving the Basics, Harvesters, many other outreach groups, ministries, and so we're just happy to be back here. We've got a great team, in our home office and about. So, again, thank you. Happy to answer any questions if you have any for me or for my engineering team.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
And again, if there is anyone that would like to speak about anything that wasn't covered initially, I'd be happy to entertain it. Okay. Council, questions?
Okay. I wanted to defer to you if you have questions.
One-side sidewalks. That stuck out to me as something, I get the point of the one side and offering other amenities. I'm just thinking of driving through neighborhoods where that happens. We're forcing kids to cross the street. Is one-side sidewalks done anymore?
So our code actually allows one-sided sidewalks in the standard suburban subdivision. So if this was a typical situation where we had lots of 70 feet or wider, we would have the option of going to the single-sided sidewalks under that scenario. In this option, this is called a neighborhood street type. Because of that neighborhood street typology, we do require that. It does allow for potential reduction in the width of the roadways at that local level, not very much, a couple feet here and there, but then it also requires that sidewalk on both sides, and that is to improve the walkability. Usually with a neighborhood that's under that suburban standard of 70 feet wide, you have more houses, more people that are out on that walkable area.
I mean, I'm a mom. I had 2 little kids. They're big kids now, but I'm picturing Halloween with one side sidewalks and the roads, and that's a lot of street crossings and things like that. But I mean, I get that's one day a year. I also live in a neighborhood that has a park in the middle of it, and my sidewalks are busy, both sides, dogs going down. So I'm picturing a neighborhood with a park that could get, those one-sided sidewalks could get very busy. Dogs and kids can't be separated. I know I have enormous dogs, and so if I see little kids, I always go to the other side to, people are scared of my dogs, but
It's because they're the size of a lot.
they are. I did say they were enormous. So I'm just trying to picture the logistics, if that's really done anymore. Just me thinking out loud here.
I know on much of Gardner, we do have one-sided sidewalks. But
Yeah, we did do it for Prairie
Yep.
And along those lines, can I ask the green space dedication, the park structure and those things, would that be public use? Or would that be tied to the community, like as an HOA?
At this point, it'd be tied to the community, it'd be through the HOA.
Yeah.
Okay. So-
It's an on-site amenity. Yep.
Which is a fantastic amenity. I'm sure the
Yeah.
homeowners would
Oh,
absolutely
yeah.
love it.
I'm sure the soccer coaches would love to have another field to practice on too, I think. But,
Well, I think that one of the things that comes to mind for me is you see so many kids on e-scooters and things like that. They want to ride them. Sidewalks on one side of the street are going to really increase the kids to ride on those things on the sidewalk. They're going to either live on that side of the street or cross the street to get to them.
I think those e-scooters aren't, do we have a policy to permit?
We haven't
those?
had a policy yet, Steve.
I know that, and we're gonna have to start thinking about one at some point.
Yeah,
Well,
a little off the subject, but
Yeah,
Evil golf.
all right.
So that's another day.
Mhm.
But I think that safety of children, I'd like to see both, but I don't know if we require Mr. Mayor to do that, so.
I don't know, when I think about sidewalks, I think the more, the safer the community. Having people who have pets, have kids, are out walking, they see stuff, they visit with their neighbors, I don't have any proof of that, but I feel like it's a safer community. I understand, I think the amenities are great. It's hard don't make us choose. Sorry.
Well, I think, I agree with you, Mark. I think we need to probably err on safety. If that's.
The sidewalks on one side versus 2 sides, I mean, you can go on both sides of that argument.
Oh.
Not on the street though.
Not intended.
Because, obviously, walkability is nice and it is helpful for whoever, scooters, walkers, everybody, disabled.
Mhm.
Granted, 14-ish houses on a block, it only takes, 1 or 2 to ruin somebody's day when they don't clean it off with snow, for that side to not get used anymore or go around. But then you can couple that with, well, what about when it's wet and people are cutting through their yard and they wish they had a sidewalk? And the maintenance is on the homeowners. So I feel like you have to err on the side of putting in the sidewalk, because you end up with less cons that way. I don't like forcing something like that on a developer or a homeowner, to be honest, because now it becomes their responsibility. But it is kind of the norm, and like I said, less cons than pros. So I would lean towards having both sides have a sidewalk.
I had a question about the tree buffers that are
Oh,
currently
that was
there.
my next question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that required then to, as a part of anything moving forward?
So that would be looked at the final development plan stage. If this was approved through this action, they would come back to us with a final development plan. They would attempt to address those conditions. Trees that are in place can be part of the buffer potentially. It's a matter of looking at where the property line is in relationship to those trees and what's there. Again, that way there is some control of that with either the homeowner or with the developer themselves. But preservation of trees that are worth preserving certainly can be considered as part of that buffer.
So if we require the additional buffer, some of what's already there could be part of that
Could be
requirement.
utilized as
So
part
we're
of that
not looking at
requirement.
it saying what's there isn't enough, we're just saying there needs to be something there and maybe what's
Correct.
there
I think
is
the
enough.
planning commission was looking at how could they visually buffer from the current development to the west, primarily west and then the south on that leg, as well as trying to sit there and understand how that relationship could work better. So again, as we look at that, we would look at it at final development stage. There'd be a landscaping plan that would be submitted with that, where we could certainly look at the existing tree stands. Again, what we don't necessarily want is the scrub brush and elements that are not really worthy of
Yeah.
keeping in that buffer.
So, yeah, I actually walked this property last week. The property line on the west side, the one that goes across the north side of that rural property, there's not really any trees there. There's some smaller scrub and some taller grass, but there's nothing there that limits that view. Now on the east side, south of lot, let me see the number here. I got to get out my glasses because I'm blind. South of the third lot, coming down from there through the stream channel and all the way to the end of the property, it's pretty much dense woods. Okay, so there, I think there's plenty of screening there already, just based on my visual assessment. But the property on the north side of, so if you're, I don't know if there's a way you can put the map on there.
Renee, if you could put up the site plan, either out of Maggie's presentation or.
Oh, you just went past it.
We're going to Maggie's.
Okay. Okay. Up. Right there, yeah, thank
We're
you.
going to Maggie's presentation.
Well, you can go back one more. and then-
Okay.
Well, it was,
No, I thought it was this one here. That's the one I was citing in the document that I have here in front of me. So if you look on the east side, from that second or third lot, all the way down to the bottom, it is dense woods, with the exception of the stream channel that goes into the pond that's sitting there on that property, doctor's property. On the north side of those rural lots, I think that there's already some green space that you've got in there as part of your plan, but those four houses right there on the far west side, there is no screening at all. It's pretty much wide open. And so if we were to make a modification on this, I would, if we want to keep or maintain screening on this part right here.
Yeah, right here.
Yeah. I think that would be advised, okay? But I think that on the east side of that rural property line, I don't see any reason why we would need to add additional screening there.
But if we just require the buffer to be that whole corner, then we could use what's there as a buffer. They wouldn't be adding
I would,
anything, but we
yeah,
want to require that they keep it there.
That's correct. So that condition number 6, that's what the intent is to look at that full property line in that L shape.
Yep.
how that's addressed based on specifics that may exist all along there. It
Yeah.
could be a blending of landscape or new landscape and existing trees. It could be a number of different things that could be done there.
Just as long as existing trees are taken into consideration and that it's not just,
Right.
they have to plant 25 more trees in that area that already
Right.
looks like
There-
it's screened.
I do not believe there was any discussion by the planning commission about specifics of what that buffer had to be, because at final development plan,
Okay.
when we see those landscape plans, that's when most of that's hashed out.
Yeah.
Steve, I'd agree with you that that would be respectful to the current landowners. And,
It's that
it-
north
it's a-
side.
It's
Yeah.
respect of privacy on their land.
Yeah, and I understand. I'm a big property rights guy, always have been. I totally get that, but I think also being a good neighbor is also kind of important here. And if we can, help to screen some of those houses, or that the northern rural house is the one I'm most concerned about, because they would have the most direct impact from that development.
The property that's bordered on two sides.
Yes, that's the one I'm talking about. Yep.
Yeah, and we need to be respectful of their privacy.
I had another question. Going through your presentation, Matt, the storm shelters, I saw that. Love it. That's the one thing I hate about the slab on grade, no basement home. I have always lived in Tornado Alley. Have seen a few myself. Hopefully, don't see any more. Is this going to be an option when they purchase their house, or is
No.
it a given every house will have?
Yeah,
one?
it'll be in every single house. So here in and around Johnson County, the ICC 500 is in code. Some cities have adopted it in, some have not. So we put them in as a standard. So one of our bigger communities there in Lenexa, West Lenexa, they have adopted that section in there. And so our systems, our operations, our model is such, so they will be in every single home that we put in.
And how many people fit in your standard storm shelter?
So they're manufactured by a manufacturing company that they specifically make
Yeah.
those. So then they're sized based on square footage and number of bedrooms in the home. So we still err to the side of caution. So whether we're doing a 3-bedroom or 4-bedroom home, we just order the same size of unit every time. It's just a lot simpler for us. So it would accommodate for what would be, so if you've got 4 bedrooms and you've got 2 people in each room, so they're sized according to code. So the IBC has a code requirement of the size of that based on the square footage of the home itself.
That's fantastic. I really do appreciate that going in there, especially with how far out this development is from some of the larger buildings and storm shelters and things that we offer here in town. So
Sure.
that was very nice to see.
Yep. Every home will have one.
Matt, do you have, are those being installed and built by your people, or are you having a third party that's certified to do that?
It's one of our trade partners. Yeah, we don't manufacture them, so we work with a manufacturer. They actually do all the installation of them as well. So it's one of our trade partners. So it's not in-house, not any of our in-house employees.
So they're certified?
Yes. Yeah. And all the boxes are all rated. So they all have rating certification. So yes.
It's basically a vault.
Yeah, no, that's
So
fantastic.
Cool.
Less water intrusion. You don't have that kind of thing because it's all self-contained.
Other questions?
Go ahead.
Callan, did we have any concerns about that north entrance as 175th is working its way up at that point to Four Corners and the distance from Four Corners intersection? From a site and people coming over the hill there. I know that we have the stop sign now, but
Tim, do you know if that was addressed in the traffic study?
Yes, it was. Good site distance. Through there, engineer might be able to speak on the details. Yeah, and then there's a turn lane to be added.
okay, but it's far enough that we think that's adequate.
Yeah.
I would very strongly recommend that we, since we're getting control of part of that intersection, that we work with the county to get a 4-way stop at Four Corners and 175th, if this goes in.
I think Kellen has talked to me about that as well. Maybe you want to mention that.
Yeah.
So, that was looked at as part of the traffic study. It doesn't meet 4-way stop warrants. Oftentimes when you put a 4-way stop in where you wouldn't expect one, it can actually cause more problems than having one.
I know we had this discussion several years ago, but with the increase in traffic that's going to be coming through that area right next door to that intersection, I think that needs to be revisited.
We can read it again in the traffic study, but it was addressed.
Tell-
every additional development that comes in.
All right, okay.
I had a couple additional questions for you. On the north entrance, the street that goes, that connects this kind of an artery there, collector from the east or the west entrance to the north entrance. All the density of the lots of the street going to the north, is that going to cause issues with traffic on those lots? Is that going to be the density of all that going to work as a collector? Or is it, yeah, I think
Mm-hmm.
you see where I'm talking about?
And about
We
175th
we
Terrace in
cannot hear a
Essex.
lot of the
I can't
response,
read.
a
I
lot of the
can't
things that
read
are
that.
even being said, and it's hard to sit here
Okay, can,
and not be able to hear everything when
you
you
speak
guys
into
have
the-
microphones.
microphones?
Yes, please.
So, with the internal roads, we have talked about potential traffic calming that could be done in there. That would also be addressed at that final development plan stage.
Yeah, I see both of those roads, particularly the north-south ones, and the one straight to the east of it is a full length north-south. Those could have a significant amount of traffic on them.
Also, just to add to that, I do believe, and Tim, you might be able to answer this one, the stub street that's shown going to the east, that is just off the property, I do believe that connects up into the Lone Star property, correct? Yeah, so what you'd have there, where this stub is coming in off to the east, that eventually connects up into Lone Star, which gives an alternate route for some of that traffic to go north to 175th through there.
I guess the concern or question I've got, is there any way that we can look at restricting parking maybe to one side of that street, those couple of streets, so that we don't end up with car and one lane passable through?
It can be looked at.
That happens all over the community, we're all paying for people that have to put up with parking. The streets are basically 3 lanes
Please,
wide.
if you could speak into the microphone, Steve.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Where the streets are basically 3 lanes wide, and you got people parking on both sides of the street. That happens on Colleen all the time, but in our neighborhood. And what happens is when people try to go through, they can't go through because the cars are all parked on the sides, and you got one lane pass for two directions. It might be very helpful to consider on those couple of streets restricting parking to just one side, or
Yeah, and I wonder if that's maybe something we address as it becomes an issue. If it's not an issue, I mean, with most people having garages.
Or something that would be a citywide policy, not one that's just for one
Yeah,
neighborhood.
based on street width.
Yeah, because, I mean, these are standard street widths and standard designs that we've used for pretty much all of our developments. So if we've not seen that as a problem in other developments that have come through recently, I wouldn't anticipate it here.
Yeah, and we did have that conversation a little bit with, during snow cleaning efforts.
Yeah.
So it might come up again in that.
I understand the thought process, like, and totally get it and support it in theory, until all of my neighbors have to park in front of my house, or I have to park across the street instead of, like, you know what I mean? Like, in practice, which side of the street do you want to live on? And
well,
that-
Side without the sidewalk.
that's a good point. I mean,
Yeah, it's just something we can think about.
How do we solve the problem? Because I can guarantee you, like, the streets I'm talking about as examples would be Mulberry
Yeah.
and Colleen, as regards to Gardner Heights, where we live.
Be a short straw.
Oh, I
you
mean,
know.
it happens in my neighborhood too. It is definitely a one lane when I leave in the morning, and sometimes I have to stop and wait for somebody to pass, and you just drive the slow in your neighborhood. But I mean, I don't think that's a thing for this neighborhood specific. If we want to discuss that as a city policy
Sure.
later on, but
I just
that's
saw that
just-
as
yeah.
a long-term.
Well, I know that a lot of cities do that just because for snow removal purposes, they'll do that. But in Gardner,
We had a
we've never
significant
really.
problem with that back in February.
Oh, I know. I've seen that.
Further discussion?
I think we're good. So from the standpoint of the deviations, how do we want to address those?
Can the deviations get pulled back up so we can look at them again? Or the, what am I?
The council, the commission recommendations, yeah.
Sorry, Renee. All the clicking.
It's the other direction.
Yeah.
No, you want them from Maggie's presentation.
Yeah.
It was toward the beginning. There you go.
There it is. Okay.
That's it.
Okay, so it looks like the ones in question are 1 and 6.
Can I ask a question about the sidewalks again? Does our code require a 5-foot sidewalk, or is that the minimum width?
5 foot is required through ADA.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to be able to put 2 wheelchairs next to each other.
Would it be inappropriate to add context to those requests? If so, tell me don't talk, but.
Please.
Yes, you.
Yeah, just add some context as you guys are considering. Like I said, we'll do whatever you guys say in relation to both those items. I heard that it was asked, is this done anywhere else? So we develop all over Johnson County. So we are single side sidewalk, 4 foot wide. Everywhere else we develop, Overland Park, Shawnee, Lenexa. Not saying that's the right answer for Gardner, and I understand this is a different municipality. But however, those cities that are large cities that have grown, that are dealing with families, children, everything else, so they've looked at that, they've analyzed and said, well, we think this is right for our community. Might not be right for Gardner. And I'm okay. If you tell me to do 5 foot sidewalks, guys, I'm going with the vote. That's what we're going to do. However, I do think that there is value. I've got 4 kids of my own to have a neighborhood gathering area that is above and beyond, that it's a major amenity versus a minor amenity, a destination place, a gathering place for families and communities to come together. I understand sidewalks get used. I've got 4 kids. We're a family of 6. So I understand that. I hear you, but it is done other places. It's done throughout the entire county, and it's done very, very safely. People understand. They travel those. If you want me to put it in, we'll do it. Steve, I appreciate your comments to the north side. Yes, there's less trees there. Thank you for looking at the trees on the east side. So just on the sidewalk, like I said, we'll do whatever you guys want.
Yeah.
But if we are needing to do them on both sides, I know the dollars and cents of what it takes to make it happen, and we'll have to be putting in what I would consider the minor amenities, what would be, the minimum required. It still makes for a great community. Now we have sidewalk amenity versus a neighborhood gathering area, which for me, I think that adds more value, but that's up for you as a council to decide.
That's why I asked the question about the
Yeah.
gathering area. I mean, it is strictly for that neighborhood.
Yeah.
Well, it would be managed probably by the HOA. It would be HOA managed, correct?
HOA managed, no cost to the city.
Yeah, because I've seen a lot of it, as I said, we had that discussion. I've seen in a lot of communities around Johnson County, not just Gardner, that when the HOA manages that particular amenity, it's
That's not at
basically
all
an exclusive amenity and is not allowed to be used by anybody else.
Well, and that's not a bad idea that it's a little nicer considering that this is the far western edge of town.
Yes.
And there isn't a park close. They've got to get all
Correct.
the way to the school.
Well, they can go to the little tiny park over at the Gardner
Oh,
Airport.
at the airport, sure.
There's a little swing set there. I guess that qualifies.
I mean,
I am really torn on the sidewalk, and that's why I asked about the 5 foot, because if we could do a 4 foot on both
One
sides,
side?
because I do understand the thought process of it looking a little bit concretey, but if ADA requires 5 foot, then
So
it's-
ADA requires a 5 foot passage area. It does allow for spacing every so often where you have the ability to pass. So sometimes we run into this with apartment complexes and things like that. So I think what the developer is referring to in some of the other cities is they'll use like the flat drive areas, as long as those slopes on the approaches and drives are such that you're not dealing with something that's in violation of ADA
Sure.
as far as a cross slope and things. So I think that's part of what allows them to interpret it as a 4 foot. That gets difficult in a hillier area versus here where you have relatively flat ground where you could probably get by with some of the approach slopes and that. I don't know for sure. That would be an engineering discussion. We'd have to look at that probably on a plot plan basis.
Yeah.
Once you get to the specific buildings on that element of it. But that's probably where the other cities have made some accommodation for that.
Yeah,
So
I haven't.
we could
went-
go to a 4 foot on both sides? and not be in
Maybe.
violation?
I don't know. going to 4 foot, and the developer would know better than this, 5 foot versus 4 foot on both sides, I don't know that there's a huge cost savings in that, really. Yeah, so.
To speak to that, I think you are right. I mean, the 5 foot sidewalks are super nice. It allows passability. You don't have to use the approach. I mean, the 11 foot back of curb, that is all inspected by the city. That is part of right of way. So those are generally flat. So if you see a driveway, you drive through anywhere, relatively flat on the approach, and then if it's going to be steep, it's going to go up after that. So it does allow for those passing areas. The 5 foot, I think, is great. I actually really like it here in Gardner. I think it's a really good idea. The minimal cost settings of going from a 4 to a 5, if you're putting it on both sides, I'd rather just let me do the 5 because it's going to be what it is. But if you guys saw it fit to say, hey, let's do the 5, we like the wider walk. There again, I think just from a visual aesthetic, it's a lot of cement. It's a lot of concrete. I like the green space in front yards. I like the street trees. I like the front yard trees. I think that adds to the character of the area. I think people are still crossing the streets. Even if you have 5 foot on both sides, they're still crossing the road somewhere to get to the other side. So those crossings are still heavy. People are not typically walking 14 houses and then walking back. They're walking down, they're crossing the street, then they're walking another sidewalk, then they're crossing another street. So people are crossing the street regardless. They're not typically just walking up and down their side of the road.
I would tend to agree. I mean, I haven't weighed in yet on the two-sided sidewalk yet, so I'm going to do that. If you have traffic, the traffic calming is the most important part of this. So you want to keep the speeds down, and you want to make sure that folks aren't ripping through those neighborhoods. Okay, but if they're not ripping through the neighborhoods, actually sidewalks on one side are a benefit to a whole lot of folks who might not want to have to shovel a sidewalk or maintain it when it breaks. And that's been one of the things that we've got several neighborhoods in our community that have that.
It would also lend more privacy and less traffic to the side that doesn't have. Matt,
Yes,
just
sir.
out of curiosity, what is the age demographic of the market you're going for?
Yeah, it's a great question. So our homes really range. We have people who are right sizing, moving down out of a family home. They are empty nesters. We also have young couples that are coming into communities. So first married, wife might be pregnant. So we're having, our homes go up to 2,700 square foot homes all on one level. That's a beautiful sized home, which accommodates for a nice sized family. And so we really see it from all areas. When we had originally started with this product type of Kansas City, look, I've been in Kansas City forever. I've been a builder. We've done basements. I've done split levels. I've dealt with sump pumps. I've dealt with cracking. I've dealt with waterproofing. Dealt with radon that comes up in the base. All the things that basements cause, right? And so, going to a patio style home that allows for customers and gives them choice, gives them options in Johnson County. And so when we originally started, we saw a lot of what I would say empty nesters. So people maybe 50 plus was a big part of our demographic. It has grown exponentially from singles, from maybe divorced individuals to young families. So we really run the gamut. So that's where I'm really excited. Gardner is a young community. It's growing. People are moving here for where Gardner is going and for the good job that you guys have done. That's where I see the value in an enhanced amenity area that's really pulling families and communities together. That's why I'm advocating. Like I'm telling you today, I'll do whatever you tell me to do on it, guys. But I really think there's great value in it for where Gardner is going and for the families that are moving in. So we're running all ages of the spectrum of our buyers.
Yeah.
So the value to the residents of the enhanced amenities would be huge.
I believe so. I think it's a good value for the community. It's a gathering place. So we talk about communities and coming together, and I agree with walkability. So I think that's important. I think 5 foot sidewalks accommodates, and even if you have it on both sides of the road, I think you're crossing the street regardless.
Casey, to your point, one side doesn't have sidewalks and the other one does. I know I would probably choose a side without sidewalk.
Oh, for sure.
I
Because you
mean,
don't have to
you know.
shovel and maintain a sidewalk.
I don't have to maintain. Danger of getting microphone close.
Yeah, next time, just press that button.
You know what the deal is? It's my hearing aids.
Yeah, press the button there, and
Okay.
that mutes your mic.
But what I'm saying is my ears feedback through my hearing aids.
Yeah. Now,
That's what's causing it.
oh, okay.
The city has recommended traffic calming devices in the area. So if you look at the linear footage of our roads, they are not abnormally long. You'll find streets all over Gardner without traffic calming devices. However, look, as a concession to that, if you guys say, look, we want to slow traffic down a little bit. We think people are going to cross the street. They are going to go to the other side.
Yeah.
We'll work very closely with staff in our final plan, and we'll come back before you with a plan that has traffic calming devices in addition to the stop signs that are there.
Yeah.
You guys have a great law enforcement as well. If people are speeding, people can pick up the phone and they can call. People, please start policing an area. But like I said, we're happy to work with staff, put in some calming devices. If the city says, hey, we're okay with the 5 foot, people are going to be crossing the road. We want to keep traffic, try and slow it down a little bit more. A little bit unique, but happy to do it.
Well, there's also the possibility that we could put some special speed limits, like 20. I think if it's not posted, it's 25 miles an hour. But make it clear that you can't go more than 20.
People need to obey the law, and the law needs to be enforced.
Exactly. No, I understand that, but I think that having it posted actually increases compliance.
Absolutely, it's going to bring awareness.
Yeah, but we don't want it like Shawnee. We don't like Shawnee Street. Okay, so
I guess I'm done.
Now we're losing light. Okay, this is interesting.
This meeting just got fun.
This got moody.
Mood lighting.
Mood lighting.
Well, on that note,
I'm.
Potter, we had a
one more
point where we
question.
make a motion.
One more
Okay.
question. One more question.
Well, I have questions.
I have one more question as well. What about the primary street, kind of the collector street going to the exit? What about just sidewalks along that one? Because that's going to be where most of your traffic or business.
So where we're connecting to 175th?
Yes, like just
So on those
sidewalks.
corner lots right there?
Yeah.
And maybe potentially 4 corners.
Or just down through that.
The main arteries in and out.
Potentially, I guess I would just be, and look, it's not that big of a deal to do it, Mayor. And so if that was the thought, I guess I would wonder, where is it going to today? Right, so it's going to a dead end. So it's a sidewalk to nowhere if you're running it out and you're drawing people, pedestrians, up to 175th or out to 4 corners with a sidewalk then connecting to nowhere. So to me, I think that it potentially could be more problematic and a little more dangerous if you're
I
taking
agree.
children or families closer to those major arteries. I would wait for the city to come in. We're dedicating right of way, 60 feet, it'd be 120 foot. We're dedicating, giving land back to the city for future improvements of those roads where we touch those. And then at that point, when those road improvements would come, if you're wanting a trail system or a pathway or something, all those easements and all that land has already been given to the city. So
There's no point in putting that sidewalk in until you have development on the other side of 4 corners.
it seems like that it would go to nowhere, and you're still on the road right of way, so it could be added in the future for connectivity. I just don't like bringing kids up closer to a major road.
I love this kind of offering, based on what you're showing here. These ranch style homes are they hold their value very well. They appreciate well. I know that when we're looking at situations where you have like empty nesters that are getting into their later years and can't get up and down stairs real well, this is a really attractive
Ideal
offering.
plan. It really is. I
Yeah.
agree with you, Steve.
Yeah, thank you.
As a governing body, we're at a point where we can make a motion.
Well, if we have to we have to look at these recommendations and see if we want to strike
Well,
them.
my motion would be to accept it as is, with changing one word in revision in number 1 and change it to sidewalk on one side, all internal streets. You go with the one side versus 2.
Comment.
The issues with stormwater, those are gonna all be treated with number 5, right? So like the concerns that the homeowners had about stormwater,
all have to meet code.
that is all gonna be
Mhm.
addressed. And
I think we need to be very, very on the screening of that one lot that neighboring.
Oh, that's number 6.
Number 6.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you guys can call out those lot numbers specifically, narrowing it, and then looking, as you guys said, and Steve went out and walked the property.
It says 78 through 97.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
full now.
We can work with staff on that.
That's the entire west side.
Staff's aware,
Yeah.
All right, so there is a motion.
I have a motion to accept the recommendation of the Planning Commission.
Point
One word
of
exception.
order. If we strike one entirely, then the preliminary development plan as it currently stands, which would be the plan in the RP.
Correct, that's what I was just clarifying with
Okay.
Maggie,
Yeah.
is
Leave
the
item
development,
number
the
1.
preliminary development plan currently shows sidewalk on one side. If you
Yeah.
strike out number 1,
Yeah.
then that takes care
Very
of
good.
that issue of
That's-
having on both sides. They'll just
Yeah.
follow the preliminary plan.
I'll
Correct.
revise my motion to strike condition number 1. Prove it as written. In striking condition number 1.
I do have a question about number 6. It says specifically lots 78 to 97.
Yeah, but we addressed that, so.
We would
the
include-
existing landscaping can count towards that, so that will be considered during the final
All
development.
right. Does
See,
that
this
need to
is a
be noted
preliminary.
in number 6?
It's a
No.
preliminary.
I think we have good enough record.
Yeah,
We'll
we
know
do.
what direction to look for as the final development plan comes.
Okay, then I'll second the motion from Mr. McNair.
Okay.
Now, I'm gonna, before you go much further, Mayor, I just want to double check with Catherine, because technically you are overriding the planning commission's recommendation.
Yes, we are.
So it would require a 2/3 vote, which in your case, you would be a voting part. This is a governing body vote, so it's a four vote for the motion to pass.
Yep.
All right, so there has been a motion, McNear, second Shoot, that we
Accept the planning condition recommendation.
yeah, accept the recommendation of the planning commission and approve ordinance number 2841, striking number 1, condition number 1. Changing the zoning classification or districts of certain lands located in the city of Gardner, Kansas, under the authority granted by Title 17 of the Municipal Code of the city of Gardner, Kansas. City Clerk?
Councilmember McNair.
Yes.
Councilmember Baldwin.
Yes.
Councilmember Deaton.
Yes.
Councilmember Lee.
Yes.
Councilmember Shute.
Yes.
Mayor Winters.
Yes. Ordinance number 2841 passes as
Amended.
amended. Yes.
Thank you, council.
Thank you. All right, moving to committee recommendation number 2, consider adopting an ordinance approving a rezoning from C3 heavy commercial district to CP3 planned heavy commercial district for a potential commercial development consisting of 7.58 acres located at the northwest intersection of Gardner Road and 188th Street. Mike?
Thank you. This application is for a Wendy's fast food restaurant, and there are several applications before you this evening. The first is rezoning to go from C3 heavy commercial to CP3 planned heavy commercial. We also have a preliminary development plan, a preliminary plat, and a final plat. The applicant did submit their final development plan application, and it was reviewed by the staff at the Planning Commission meeting. The Planning Commission decided to hold off on the final development plan until after the governing body had the opportunity to vote on the preliminary development plan, because the action that you take on the preliminary may have an impact on the layout of the site. We've talked about where it's located. I've got proposed development consists of one lot that is outlined in red that would be developed by Wendy's. The area in blue, there's a lot going on here, so I wanted to talk about this tract. Right now, there is right-of-way that still exists, and it's the area that's crosshatched. So with the final plat, that right-of-way from the old 188th Street would be vacated. There would also be stormwater detention for Wendy's and possibly additional property that would be on this blue tract. Lastly, you can see that on my next slide that there's going to be access through this tract in order to get to the different access points on 188th. And then the area, the yellow line, was representative of a future cross-access easement that would be provided from this property to the property to the north, and that would eventually get you up to 187th Terrace. This slide gives you a better idea of what's proposed. The building is surrounded with parking and a drive-through. The applicant is proposing several points of access. The first one to talk about is at a right-in off of Gardner Road. Staff is recommending that that not be allowed, and I'll go through the reasons why we're not recommending those in just a minute. The second point of access would be the eastern side of 188th Street, that eastern curve. They're proposing a right-in and a right-out. Staff is recommending that it only be a right-in and a median be constructed to restrict other turning movements, and that would be a median basically where where it appears to be more of a painted median. The western curve of 188th is where you would have full access. Right in, right out, left in, left out. And on this slide, you can better see how you would have access to not only Tract D for future development, but also to Wendy's. As stated in the report to the Planning Commission and reflected in the draft minutes, staff recommended the changes to the proposed access based on concerns related to the right-in off Gardner Road being located within 200 feet of the intersection with 188th Street, and that is within the intersection's functional area. This may cause traffic accidents as people planning to turn right going southbound on 188th may not recognize that there's other vehicles slowing down to turn into Wendy's, causing rear-end collisions. In addition, this right-in is approximately 220 feet south of 187th Terrace and the Gardner Road intersection, and the city's access management code states the minimum connection between spacing for a minor arterial such as Gardner should be 440 feet. With respect to the right-in, right-out on 188th Street, this also does not meet the minimum spacing requirements, and allowing a right-out may increase potential turning conflicts as people actually try to turn left to get back to Gardner Road. At our Planning Commission meeting, we had one person speak at the public hearing, and he expressed concerns regarding semi-trucks backing up at the intersection of 188th Street and Gardner, and backing up far enough that it would actually not allow people to turn in this right-in that's proposed. The applicant is requesting one deviation, and that's related to foundation plantings adjacent to the building. Staff and the Planning Commission are recommending approval of the deviation based on additional landscape material proposed to be installed between the building and Gardner Road. Both staff and the Planning Commission are recommending approval of changing the zoning classification from heavy commercial to planned heavy commercial. With respect to the associated preliminary development plan and preliminary plat, we are recommending, in addition to the Planning Commission, approval of those two items with the 5 conditions that are listed. The first 2 relate to the proposed access from Gardner Road and onto 188th Street. The others relate to other items with respect to the site layout. The final plat, we do have 3 conditions that would be tied to the final plat recommendation, which is also for approval. You may have recognized that in the staff report to the Planning Commission, we had the final plat and final development plan as a single recommendation, and there were 5 conditions. So when we pulled the final development plan out, we removed those conditions that were related directly to that. That's the conclusion of my presentation. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Open this up to public comment, I assume. Oh. And again, if you please state your name and address for the record.
For sure. My name is Felix Talenche, Mayor Winters, governing body. Thank you very much for having us here today. Felix Talenche, Legacy Restaurant Group. Our offices are in Lenexa, Kansas at 10916 Strangline Road. Super excited to be here. We've been a Wendy's franchisee since 1998. I'm one of the principal owners of the group and as I mentioned, the president. One of our fun things to do here in Kansas, we own and operate 52 restaurants, and we're always very excited to partner with our communities. One of our most successful recent new openings was in Eudora, Kansas, where we were thrilled to bring a Wendy's into that community and partner up and actually doing some great amenity work, both with their schools and some projects that we've done with them, as well as building out some scoreboards for them for their public park system, which has been a lot of fun. For me, my passion for Wendy's is a little bit different. I came to love the brand for a lot of the great things that Dave Thomas, the founder of Wendy's, actually did for a lot of folks. Some folks don't appreciate this, but Dave was actually one of Colonel Sanders' original franchisees in the KFC system. And he was a man ahead of his time in thinking about how to bring quality, value, and convenience to all of their guests. And if you don't know this, the bucket was actually Dave's idea. The idea of actually being able to take fried chicken away from the restaurant and being able to give a family a hot meal at home and something that worked really well was his concept. The other thing that folks don't often appreciate is that Dave was actually the inventor of the drive-thru. His idea when he first opened up his Wendy's in 1969 was, why don't I take a speaker box and put it 20 feet away from the window so that folks can order from there and then just drive right up and get their food and go. That was the first and innovative idea back in the day in the 50s and the 60s. If you went to a burger stand, you actually picked it up from the window, took a tray, and walked away and sat down at a park bench. That's the original concept for the idea, but Dave was way ahead of his time. We take that very seriously today as we think about our business and we think about new locations. We very much focus on a couple of things that Dave taught us. Quality is our recipe. Do the right thing, treat people with respect, give back to your communities, and most importantly, profit's not a dirty word. Profit in this business helps to drive a lot of things, and I think as a partner for you in the community, we'll be able to bring a lot more sales tax revenue, as was addressed in some of the commentary earlier today. We think the opportunity for us to bring this Wendy's here will be an amazing, amazing opportunity for the community and for us to partner up with you and do something very special. Now, I'm not the developer of the site. I'm just here representing the operator that will take over the site once it's ready. I'm going to let John Peterson and our engineers from Caw Valley give you some more details and specifics on it. But as I like to say, again, the main things that we try and bring to you guys is quality, value with our signature Dave singles, our Frosties, and our impressive Biggie Bag, which if you guys haven't had one recently, I highly, highly recommend you go pick one up. Anyways, thank you very much for your time, folks.
Thank you.
I do enjoy Wendy's, so
I love
thank
it.
you.
Well, Mr. Peterson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. John Peterson, for the record. I spent about 30 years coming to this podium on behalf of a variety of applicants. I had the pleasure of doing it in Gardner. Tonight, I'm here as the property owner. So the good news is I've gotten so old that I don't talk as long as I used to. So I'm going to get to the point. I had a couple of slides that we asked to be. Go ahead and put them up if you don't mind. Thank you. As the property owner for about 20 years now, believe it or not, my partner and I bought this property about 20 years ago. We had great hopes for it, and we've continued to have great hopes for it for 20 years, and it's great to see the city growing, and we're finally getting the activity along Gardner Road. But many things happened, and I'm going to mention a couple of them, not to say you would expect me to be in support of this application, because I want to sell some property and get the rest of the property there activated and ready to go. But I'm going to give you a little bit of historical information, not to say, well, because of that, you ought to approve this application, but I think it'll become relevant in just a minute. One, that picture on the screen right now is very illustrative from the standpoint that originally the plowed field was our property and the green was 188th Street. And we dove in and had the pleasure through assessments that we agreed to pay for 188th Street. About $1 million we paid for 188th Street. But the street was built, and if you can recall, that was built, it was a big honking street. That thing was about as wide a street as I've ever seen, and I think at that time it was anticipated 188th Street was going to be a major arterial east and west. Things changed, times come on. About the time that Quick Trip came along, the city changed its road network, its plan, its vision, and all of a sudden 188th really became Locust, connecting with Gardner Road and 188th. Well, it really left the north side of the road, quite honestly, very difficult to develop because of the road configuration. It's primed for convenience, retail. We've got a hospitality party interested in the west side of this north piece, north of there. But we've got to get things going. So when I didn't participate, Caw Valley has been leading the charge in terms of getting all of the approvals for the plats and reformatting everything and bringing Wendy's site plan through. I was aware of their points of access, and I think Felix may speak to it.
I will say something he told me. He's got to have better access, so we don't have a deal. I'll just be straight up about it. That doesn't mean that that is the determining factor of why you should decide yes or no on any particular issue. But I will hearken back to when I was up here doing this for 35 years. When you have a situation where if you cut through all the chase and you say you got convenience, need for convenience in business, and safety, those are two sometimes competing elements. And you should never sacrifice safety just for convenience. We've got the Gardner Road right in. What I do when I look at these, and I finally started getting a little more involved in this, I look at it, I always say, first of all, what regulation of the city are we dealing with? Here it's the access management plan in large part. When things don't quite fit, sometimes you ask for variances or deviations. You look and say, well, how is it being handled in other parts of the city? On this one, it does not meet the access management plan. I will say, for what it's worth, if you look right across the street, you have the exact same configurations going on at many of the fast food restaurants on the other side. I did a little history, a little study. I don't think it's presented a safety issue. I don't know if the police department's represented here, but we checked the accident reports, and it seems to be doing fine there. Now, moving around the corner, however, because again, I'm going to let Felix tell you, could he live with not having the right in on Gardner, but we need a full right in. If I could go to the next slide, please. This really gives you the same one that staff had put up. Without Gardner, that means somebody takes a right turn on 188th Street, and definitely, I think it's paramount importance to have a good right in, right out there, just like Quick Trip has across the street. It's right at the exact same location you can see. A right in only means you right in there, and then you got to come clean across, and I'm giving them an easement across my other track to get all the way over on 188th Street, which you turn a left, and then you'd have to come out and maneuver through the traffic there. That is definitely taking away convenience when it comes to the idea of a convenience store. Let's go back to you just don't give up safety just because of convenience. I will tell you this, when the city approached us and said, guys, we want to reconfigure the road, we want to take some of your property here, we want to give you back some over here, the road's going to be curved, which is never good for development, quite honestly. It was clearly understood this was going to be a collector. And in fact, it is designed as a collector, 60-foot right-of-way, 35-mile-an-hour speed. And if you use the collector standards, as I read the Access Management Code, our distance from Gardner Road to what would be a right-in, right-out is consistent with the Access Management Plan. Now, I've heard, I did not hear this myself, so it could be inaccurate, that some at the city has said, well, we treat it like an arterial. I only say for the record, it's not designed as an arterial. Speed and all of that, and if we would take it as a collector, then a full right-in, right-out there would work. I also understand that there is maybe some anecdotal activity at Quick Trip where people are still trying, it's a right-in, right-out. It's got that pork chop design into it, that, and as we have proposed, but people are trying to cross over anyway, and thus the median. And that may be an existing condition with the city. I would now, that's the reason I pled my case that I've already spent $1 million on roads, that if there is going to be a median required, that maybe it would be considered that'd be a city at large public improvement instead of putting it on the back of the developer who's already invested quite a bit of money in the street network here. I think as a city cost, it has been considered. I'm not going to speak for staff. I've talked to staff, and at least it had been considered to go in anyway. So that's really it. The last comment is staff referred to, you can't see it very well, but that red line going across my other lot to the north. I have to be honest with you, access from the north to our property doesn't mean anything to us. It's a back handle. It's not going to increase the value on our property whatsoever. I'm not even sure what the development plans are up there. But I will tell you this, if the city think that could potentially make it better in the future when something to the north, I will have agreed as part of this application to commit that there will be an easement there for cross-access from the north. And even though, as you can see, it kind of chunks off a piece of my property, I won't be able to sell that piece, even though it's just an easement. That's just the way the world is. So that's it. Maybe I'm not as short as I thought I was in my old age, but I hope you can support the application. You might want to hear from Felix again about this access. Right now, I think the deal's dead. That's what I'm hearing if we stick with the pure recommendation of staff. Thank you very much for indulging me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great seeing you, John.
Thank you.
Is there any other comments before we move?
I'll just, since John asked me to provide a little more color and context in terms of how we think about convenience and think about the access to the site. Given where we're located, I think this is a perfect way to look at it. Given where we're located on that far end of it, you'll notice that from the site right now, without access from Gardner Road, that entry to Gardner Road, there actually is no access currently on the property that we're actually planning on building on. The only way we'll actually get access off of our property is actually going through the rest of John's property through that tract A that's there at the bottom. The principal thing that we're focused on is making sure that we give all the guests in the community easy access to the restaurant so they can come through quickly, but more importantly, also to be able to get back on their way back to work. An amazing fact, we pride ourselves on speed of service in our drive-through, and one of the things that's really important is for us to be able to get our guests in and out of the lot during lunchtime in under 180 seconds. So the idea is that when somebody reaches a speaker box, by the time they place their order and they leave our lot, it's been less than 3 minutes. So the key message there, they're trying to give folks an opportunity to grab their food and get back to work on a timely basis during that lunch rush, and be able to give them quick access back to the main arterials and main connections roads along the way. So getting access back to 188th as quickly as possible off of our lot is of paramount importance to provide that convenience to all of our guests, so that they can actually have a reasonable time to actually enjoy their lunch and be able to have a great day. But that's just a quick thoughts on the access to the site. Thank you.
Thank you, Felix. Any other comments? Council.
You first, Casey.
Council Vice President.
Assuming I'm going to be making some Wendy's runs for a certain someone who's watching at home who loves his saucy nugs, I want to make sure.
I wonder who that could be.
Make sure I can get in and out of this place. So if we put in a median, that would help block people from illegally coming in and out of Quick Trip, the way I'm sure nobody has ever done before. And the little cement triangle there. Are we still against a right in, right out at that middle?
I am.
So the question is on 188th Street.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I may regret saying it, but I'm actually agreeing with John to some degree on this. But yeah, I mean, 188th Street is technically, it's an arterial in our major street map, but he's right. It functions somewhat as a collector just by nature. It doesn't have the traffic volume, and that's basically why we relaxed our requirements there and allowed an entrance at that point. Our feeling is that from a safety standpoint, having the right in versus including the right out is two different things. And at least in my mind, I don't see that moving the people that are going to go west out of here aren't really being terribly inconvenienced by going farther west and down to Locust to get out versus having the right in, right out right there. Just west of 100 of the Gardner Road intersection. So, yeah, again, we've seen it time and time. It's not just Gardner, but just in general, when you don't have a raised median, a lot of people will just ignore it. And so, yeah, that's why we think it's important to put the raised median in here to prevent the eastbound people turning in left. We also have a concern too with if we have a right out there that would allow people to basically head west and make a U-turn to go back east instead of going out and around. So even if we allowed the right out, it wouldn't change the movement from people who want to go back east. They still need to kind of circle around to 188th and to the Locust intersection to work their way back east, if that makes sense.
Or you'll have people
That's
cutting
right.
through the Quick Trip
Yeah.
parking lot
I literally watch people turn in the wrong way into Quick Trip daily,
all the time.
right?
Which is kind of
And
one
they're
of the
gonna do
we
the
need a
same
median
thing
anyway.
into
Yeah.
Wendy's from the other direction. So I think the median is a must.
Yeah.
But I think the right in is fine, but I don't think the right out gains anything because, yeah, everybody's gonna U-turn at the light. They're gonna come up
Well-
to that intersection, whip a U-turn, and come back out to go east and hit.
Except
Gardner
if you're an employee over at the intermodal warehouses,
Right.
in which case you would be just getting onto Locust and going south.
Road. Right, and you're not losing much there.
Well, you are, because you have to make a left-hand turn over at 188th and then make a right-hand turn at,
Right, but there's less
At
traffic
Locust.
right there than will be coming
Yeah.
on the curve.
oh, that's another question. That's another concern I've got, is that if you're coming from the north, Gardner Road going south, all right, and you're going to leave Wendy's and go down to the interstate, okay, you go in, even if, so let's assume that we take that direct off of Gardner Road off, which I am
Yeah.
leaning towards because I don't think that does fit with our traffic code. And they go right onto Locust and then go right in to Wendy's. In order for them to get back out to South Gardner Road, they got to go all the way over to 188th, make a left, go to Locust, make another left, and then make a right on.
Yes, but at least that left has control, right? Because as
Some.
this develops more, think to the left and up to the northwest, as we
Yep.
have more of the homes come down and more industrial, commercial work its way west, that's going to become busier. And you're going to want people at that controlled access.
Well, I'll be honest with you, I think the best long-term solution is to get that road built on the west side, up to 187th Terrace. That would
may
be the.
nice, but that doesn't address getting back
I-
to the east.
I understand that. Well, it does help get people going back south again.
Well, but they would still follow this same general flow, right? I get what you're saying on the west side, from the north-south, yes.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think the right out halfway down the curve is going to gain anything other than a quick movement. But then, yeah, if you're going back south or north, if you're going to Gardner Road at all, where are you going to turn around? Somebody's going to whip a Yui, or they're going to do something,
They'll
actually
cut-
come back up into the property and turn around up there and come right back
What
out.
they'll do is they'll cut across the truck via the truck entrance into
Yeah.
Quick Trip. They'll
They can
just
do
make
that
a
too. And
they'll
come
make a
over
left-hand
Culver's
turn and
and
go
Culver's.
racing over to Culver's.
Yeah.
Does that go straight to Quick Trip?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
And we could make it a violation, put a no U-turn sign there.
Well, that's what I was thinking.
Well,
Yeah,
and
that'd be
then
a simple solution.
my other concern, or my other thought along with this, if there was signage. So let's say I don't live in Gardner and I came off of 35 coming north and I need to get back to 35. If there was a sign there that said on that right in, back to 35, like some signage to show me how to get to Gardner Road or how to get back to 35, I don't know, just
I think anybody who's coming up from the interstate is gonna have a hard time getting back to the interstate. And are we saying that we're okay with deleting this entrance off Gardner Road to the north?
I
I
think
think
it's
so.
required because understand this. Right now, in the mornings, when you're in that southbound Gardner Road, and I live there, the traffic is backing up all the way past 188th Street and into that area where that right turn would probably end up going. Okay? That's a recipe for disaster.
When you have another business right there that people can come out of.
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
go into. And I think that's a mess if you put that right in right there.
I would agree.
I think I can agree with the no access off Gardner Road. I think the two rights, the right in, right out, with the median and maybe a no U-turn sign.
That's what I would do.
That's what I agree.
We could do that.
I'm fully aware.
And this is in most communities in the
It'd
metro.
be illegal to whip a Ewing.
Yeah.
People
And-
may do it, but they can risk
Not
it.
only, I do, I mean, I don't know how to do it, but I do think signage on how to get back to the highway would be helpful. And I mean, I just
Yeah.
did 2 19-hour trips out to the East Coast in 1 week driving, and there were times where we had to get off the highway, and I got lost twice just trying to get gas. So just
Yeah.
for,
I stopped to get gas at the new gas station across over by Clare Road, and I got lost getting back
Yeah.
up to 175th Street.
And so us that live here in Gardner, we're gonna figure this out, and we're gonna figure it out really quickly. But for the people, you know, we are trying to capture more of those out-of-town dollars. So if the easier we can make it for people to come in here to spend money in
Yep.
our town and then to get back out on the highway, I think the better. So any type of signage that we can provide leading them back to the highway or back to Gardner Road, I think would be helpful.
Yep.
But I think that median
I think the median's a
is,
must.
is a must. I think that's
It's gonna
some-
solve 2 problems.
and I am personally okay with having that as a city thing because like you said, it solves 2 problems. It's not just the Wendy's problems. It's
It
not
solves
just
the
a your
quick trip
property
problem,
problem.
too.
It's a quick trip problem as well. So
And a Culver's problem. I mean, a lot of folks cut through Quick Trip to get to Culver's.
yeah,
That median is really an important piece. I would recommend we do that.
We don't know what's could go in
yeah.
for sure in that vacant tract right now. With now you'd be cutting
Yeah.
the whole process. We don't know what's going to be in there. That might create even more traffic in that area. I'm good with that median, right in, right out on both locations there.
Mhm.
Not the Gardner Road, but the one.
Yep.
Yeah.
with the sign.
Full access on the west side of the property, right in, right out at Locust, and removing the right in from Gardner Road.
Which is very similar to
With
the
the no
Taco
U-turn.
Bell. Yeah,
Yep,
with-
it's Taco Bell.
That's very similar to how the Taco Bell, because you go in on a street and then have to make another turn to get into their
Yeah.
parking lot.
Solves the problem.
Mr. Felix, would you
Yeah.
like to add something to that?
Well, I think Kellen also wanted to
Oh, I'm sorry, Kellen.
add something about the median.
I was just gonna say that, of the last, I think, 4 or 5 write-in, write-outs that we've put
Mhm.
in, they're always violated if we don't put a median.
Yeah.
Yep.
Our recommendation moving forward from the engineering staff is that medians are gonna be required for.
I would
think we all
completely
agree
agree.
on that. I think there's consensus on that.
Yep.
Mr. Felix?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up with something that Councilman Deaton was actually calling out. I actually think the signage idea is a brilliant idea, and it's actually something that we're planning on doing anyways. I think about us as trying to attract 3 pieces or 3 main constituents from a traffic perspective. One is the residents of Gardner as they're coming southbound down Gardner Road on their way to work, and trying to get them a great breakfast on their way out. Which, by the way, our maple bacon biscuit is delicious. Every chance I get, I'm going to promote.
I've had it before. It's very good. Yes.
But that's a key constituent for us. The second constituent, which is very important for us, is making sure we get that intermodal workforce to actually
Yep.
get back into us. And one of the things that if the median's in place, the median's in place. We're not worried about that because of the way the traffic patterns would work, and the right in, right out on 188th or on Locust is something we're expecting. We're actually planning on putting signage at the southern end of Tract A to help actually folks in the intermodal know how to get into the Wendy's quickly.
Great.
But the other part that I think is really important is making sure we help them get back to 35 effectively, right? Because one of the important things for us is going to be saying, hey, if you want to get back to the interstate or back to Gardner Road, the way to do it is to go across Tract A and then go back down to the all access
Exactly.
there on 108. So that's brilliant. And Councilman Deaton, I'm totally in support of that. Makes all the sense in the world. Signage and directing folks around the place is the most important thing. So I love that idea.
Felix, we want you to be successful.
Thanks, Steve. I appreciate that.
To be clear, though, you're saying that you're going to recommend with your signage for them to go out the west exit?
Mhm.
For the folks that are trying to get back to Gardner Road, but I think one of the councilmen made a really important call, access to, and this is really, really important for our business. For the folks that are trying to get back to the intermodal, having to get over to Locust is actually going to be a real inconvenience.
That'd be a lot quicker for them to
Yeah.
go down and
So
make
it's
that right out.
the right in, right out on Locust there is actually really important for the intermodal more than anything else. Cool. Thanks, guys.
Okay, and to Council Vice President's point regarding the median, you're suggesting that the city cover that expense?
I think we'll probably need to.
We need to because it solves so many other problems.
We can credit excise tax as well
Mhm.
as an option to pay
Is that
for
part
it.
of the 92,000, Jim?
Say again?
Stop it, Steve.
Yeah, I like that. Credit the excise.
Yeah. That's why they pay the development fees, so. All right.
Okay. All right, so, unless there's any further discussion, is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Yep.
Oh, wait a second. We need to see the restrictions.
We'll make sure that we've got,
Yeah, we wanna have the right motion.
go back where the conditions are listed.
That one or?
Yep, that one's good enough, just to make sure, because those are incorporated.
Oh, yeah.
into
So
the
it's
ordinance.
clause
so-
2.
It's my hearing aids, guys. This is the first.
No,
time.
that one's the other Steve.
Steve's, take a step back.
All I did was just,
I put my microphone away, too.
I actually pulled mine away. Oh, okay. Ow.
So,
Got a ringing in my ears here.
so just to look at this, it looks like item number 2, you would want to be adjusting based on what I'm hearing. So the proposed write-out would still be allowed.
Correct.
In that situation, but a median would be installed to restrict the turning movements.
That's correct.
And the turn lane should be installed for the right-in.
Should we clarify, as an excise credit?
What I would, well, no, that'll go through other discussions.
Yeah.
So I'm not worried about that. I think this is just getting this to the point where, and I think if you were to, I think number 2, you could just take out the element there up to the first comma.
Yep.
So, a median shall be installed to restrict the turning movements. A left turn lane should be installed for the right-in
Remove only.
off of, yeah, you take only out of that also.
Mhm.
So you just have a median shall be installed to restrict other turning movements, and a turn lane shall be installed for a right-in off of 188th Street.
So strike the word only and strike the first part of
Right,
that
right,
clause.
Right, we have to add right out.
Installed 488th Street.
Yeah, but the turn lane doesn't serve the right out.
No.
Just the demo lane. So either way, we can go either way on it.
I have a question about 3. Why are we specifying 3?
So essentially what's going on there is we have a maximum limitation on the amount of parking spaces that you're allowed with commercial development. They're exceeding that maximum number, but part of the discussion that we've had with them is they're accommodating things like the DoorDash, Grubhub, online ordering kind of thing. Our code doesn't really address that. It's really just looking at parking in a traditional sense. So to exceed the maximum, there's a deviation to exceed the maximum. But what we're doing is trying to accommodate for those proposed parking stalls that will be designated that way. We want to make sure they're signed and installed that way. So we're allowing them through that deviation to have more parking spaces than we would typically allow.
I mean, I'd be okay with approving a deviation that they can have 3 extra stalls and not specify how they use it.
They're getting 3 extra stalls with this. They just have to designate how they're using
I
it.
see that.
It's kind of like ADA spaces. We don't count the ADA spaces toward the maximum either. So this way, with the designation, it allows us to do that.
So, and I don't think it's any additional burden on the property owner.
I don't think
correct?
it is. It's
Yeah.
following in line
So-
with their requests. So
Yep. If they're
I think
okay
what
with
you're
it.
gonna, I think what you're gonna find is we're gonna start looking at our parking regulations a little bit because of some of this. You know, the fast food market, some of the retail market is changing because of online ordering and
Absolutely.
door pickups and curb pickups and things like that. There's getting to be more demand to mark spaces for different specific users. You see that sometimes for veterans. You see that sometimes for pregnancy items, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, that was my concern is this changes in 3 years. And there's a different use case now, and it's for e-scooters to be parked there or whatever. You know, that's, I was like, hey,
Golf
they can have
carts.
the 3 spots and do whatever they want with them.
And
Golf carts.
Yeah,
Golf
and
carts,
we'll end up working with property owners on that as that occurs too. I'm not, you're right, all this stuff is changing rapidly. The code does not really keep up with it. We felt this was a way for us to at least accommodate it, meet the code, allow the exception to go beyond it, because if we get more and more requests, that's what's gonna dictate.
Yeah.
We hate to get over those maximums and just give those away, because you'll end up with seas of parking in other places.
Okay. All right. Could we change that to stalls for governing body?
Ooh.
Yeah. Ooh.
Well, they might have to.
Sorry, what was it? I didn't catch that.
Oh,
yeah,
just for governing body only.
They might, yeah.
For sure.
Okay. Are you acceptable with that, Mark?
I'm good.
Okay. So,
Maple bacon
is there a
biscuit.
motion and a second? Sorry. Is there a motion?
You had the
There,
vote.
we have, I made the,
Second.
yeah.
Second McNear. We accept the recommendation of the planning commission with the changes to.
Clause
Item
2.
Item 2.
Yep.
For writing right out.
Right in, right out. And approve ordinance number 2842, an ordinance changing the zoning classification or districts of certain lands located in the city of Gardner, Kansas, under the authority granted by Title 17, the municipal code of the city of Gardner, Kansas. City clerk.
Councilmember Baldwin.
Yes.
Councilmember Dean.
Yes.
Councilmember Lee.
Yes.
Councilmember Shue.
Yes.
Mayor Winters.
Yes.
Councilmember McNear.
Yes.
Ordinance number 2842 passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Good to
Thank
see you
you.
guys. Hope I'll bring some other applications. on
Oh, that would
this.
be wonderful, John. Just
There you go.
keep burning the midnight oil there.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Any recommendations?
Oh, we're in
Okay.
new business yet.
Is it just starting new business?
New business, item number 1. Consider adopting a resolution providing notice of public hearing in connection with the adoption of an amended and restated development plan for a reinvestment housing incentive district in the city of Gardner, Kansas. Grand Street Reinvestment Housing Incentive District. Mr. Matt.
Due to changes in market demand, the Grand Street developer desires to modify the residential project to be constructed in the southeast part of the district, described in the original development agreement, by replacing the 90 assisted living senior apartments with approximately 42 senior townhomes. In your packets, you'll find the amended and restated development plan and also an updated feasibility study. The proposed resolution would set the public hearing for July 21st, 2025. And this is basically, I consider more of a housekeeping procedural item. Baker Tilly will be out to present the feasibility study at the public hearing. And also Kutak Rock and the developer will be out that time as well.
I don't believe there's any public left
No
for
public
comment. Okay, so council, do you have anything?
If we have questions about this project, the right time to ask them would be during the public hearing or during that meeting, correct? So this is just, do we want a public hearing?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, no questions.
Okay. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion Deaton, second McNear. We adopt resolution 2173, a resolution providing notice of a public hearing in connection with the adoption of an amended and restated development plan for a reinvestment housing incentive district in the city of Gardner, Kansas, Grand Street Reinvestment Housing Incentive District. City clerk.
Councilmember Dean.
Yes.
Councilmember Lee.
Yes.
Councilmember Shue.
Yes.
Councilmember McNear.
Yes.
Councilmember Baldwin.
Yes.
Resolution 2173 passes. New business item number 2, consider authorizing the execution of an agreement with the Retail Coach for retail market analysis and retail recruitment services.
So this is an item that the mayor and I brought back from ICSC. We met with a few companies out there and did presentations on not only retail recruitment, but on aggregating market material that can be used to put out in the marketplace and draw people to Gardner that are looking for specific markets like ours. It's amazing how much information they get from cell phones as far as people movement and how many people come here and go there, and that information can be put into a market study that can match site selection criteria for a number of different retailers, whether it's restaurants, hotels, everything runs the gamut. So the Economic Development Council met to discuss the proposal from the retail coach. We got a couple of proposals. One was retail strategies, one was retail coach. They seem to do the same thing. This was significantly less expensive than the other. This would be $30,000 plus reimbursable expenses, and they will start work if this is approved on July 1st. This is kind of our proactive marketing effort to get retail here, and they'll work with Grada's agent. They'll work with Claire Crossing and any number of sites that we have, the police lot, anywhere where retail development has that potential. So the recommendation is to authorize me to execute an agreement with the retail coach for services in the amount of $30,000 plus reimbursable expenses.
And a lot of this will come from the transient guest tax.
Yes.
As well. Other comment? Nope. Okay, council.
Just two questions. One is, do we have any problem with these people being halfway across the country? We talked about that this afternoon. Is there any, council have any issues with these people operating remotely?
In the meeting, they said they would be on site at least twice a year.
Yeah.
And they're also going to be, chatting with weekly the different developers and.
Yeah.
The other question it'll come back.
So market aggregation services, that's something that we used to have with Southwest Johnson County EDC. They used Siri, which is a database of demographic information.
This goes
This goes
beyond
way,
that.
yeah. Based on what I've been seeing in the accompanying documentation, they do what are called heartbeat surveys, which are like very, very detailed demographic analysis, taking into account population samples and other pieces that are very, very granular in scale. And so we can also mix and match these particular analysis to whatever commercial type of business that we would like to attract. And so, we were talking about, everybody's been on CFG and people know what people want on CFG. If we wanted to bring a sit-down restaurant into town, then we've got to have the associated demographics available to be able to pitch to a company to be able to bring that kind of offering to Gardner. You can't just get that, you can get it on the open market, but there's got to be some context you got to build, and that's where the aggregation comes in. And so, yes, I'm absolutely in favor of this because the more we can use that, data's power, right? Right, Mark? If you can manipulate the data and be able to make it useful. Well, I'm not talking about All right, information is just manipulated data, guys. So you can make the numbers talk in any way you'd like to. Exactly.
I remembered, Steve, my two questions that I had.
Okay.
What were we spending for the economic development?
I believe it was 90.
90,000?
Yep, it was 90.
Yeah.
What results did we get?
Well, they were fielding calls. They weren't really marketing us as being proactive. And I think that's what's happening in some of the retail locations we have. They're just taking calls and not going out. These guys have relationships with different people. We had a lengthy conversation with them in Vegas about where we are. They talked about, we're getting all the quick serve restaurants, we're getting all of them at the same time, and that's an indication that we are passing that threshold so we can start getting sit-down restaurants and some of the other things that people want.
So the other two things, mileposts or mile markers, do we have any?
Milestones? No, it'll be, after a year, we'll be able to evaluate,
But this is for a 1 year.
1 year.
30,000, 1/3 of what we were paying before.
Yeah, so
Yes.
we essentially replace Southwest Johnson County EDC.
And they'll actually
And
advocate,
we'll
which
get-
is
Right, we're going to get reports. It's going to be
Yeah.
better. Something that you mentioned, we actually get access to the data. As well.
Yes,
It's not
direct
just a report.
access.
Yep,
Yeah.
which is huge. And to be clear, this is not us going out and saying we want an Olive Garden, and
No.
then them going out and trying to acquire. It is them taking all of our pros and our demographics and saying, hey, all the people we know, will that fit for you?
Mhm.
Right? It's a matchmaking service.
Absolutely.
It is not that we're, doing what everybody thinks we do on CFG.
Yes, I know.
Okay, just to be clear.
But on that note, this does not mean we have never once talked to any retail companies. We are not just now starting to look at retail.
Right.
I agree.
We have, as a city, been going out. The mayor and Jim went to I forget the acronym.
ICSC.
ICSC. That's not the first time we've been there. We are actively promoting for retail and for businesses. This is going to help us with that, but certainly not the start of us.
The connections.
Right.
The connections it's not what you know is who you know. I think it is what you know and who you know. And this is going to allow us to get more access to more information. And we'll be able to leverage the relationships created by these guys to be able to get folks in front of us.
Guys, I don't see any downside.
I don't either.
All right.
Okay.
Motion.
How about a motion?
So move.
Second. I got it.
Motion Baldwin, second, I think I heard you first. That we authorize the city administrator to execute an agreement with the retail coach for services in the amount of $30,000. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstained? New business item number 2 passes. Thank you, Jim. Okay. Well,
I hope everybody has a lot of updates.
yes.
It's still
Hurry,
early.
we can get to them before 10.
Don't we have a cutoff like 10 o'clock?
I mean, the light's already turned on.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did. They tried to get us out of here.
Gee.
I don't have any updates.
All right.
I do not have any updates.
No. Matt.
Just want to quickly recognize my staff was here earlier, DNC unit, technicals, and also some EDF for
Woo. All right.
Awesome. Thank you. City attorney.
Nothing from me. If anyone has questions about
Mhm.
my speech earlier, let me know.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for filling in. Gons.
Nothing tonight.
Okay. Jason.
Nothing.
Okay.
Nobody has the guts.
Blows the streak. 2 items. One, we do have a planning commission meeting next Monday at 7 p.m. City Council chambers here at City Hall. So we do have agenda items again. The
Good.
second item, just briefly, I was going to read this verbatim, but maybe I'll read it verbatim real slow. I left it at your desk tonight at the dais there, the principal use signage handout there. I tried to channel my inner NASTA and do a matrix so that some of you would be happy.
Nice.
So anyway, we did do some comparison to several other adjacent communities or communities in the area. I've placed the state of Kansas there just so you know, and as you know, we cannot be less restrictive than the state. So when you're looking at the state, it's important to recognize that. Also, the items that I've got in that column refer to the interstates. So the state does have some differentiation between scenic byways and some of the other regulated highways and what they allow and don't allow. So that's the state. Then I also put in Johnson County because a great amount of exposure along I-35 here is the Johnson County standards that we have. Then I've got our standards, and then I went to see Edgerton, Lenexa, Olathe, Ottawa, Overland Park, and Spring Hill. So you've got that in the matrix there. Certainly, I was going to do a little more of a presentation, but given the time that we're at, if you have questions, certainly just let me know. The other sheet that was with that, I took the 7 points that were made as part of the handout you got last time, and I just tried to give brief responses under each of those 7 points to summarize some of those things. So that information's there and before you. Certainly let me know if you have any questions. My analysis at this point is on a lot of things we are not necessarily the most restrictive. There are a couple things that we have that are different than other communities, like the 5-year maintenance certification process for the renewals, but that again, if the sign's in good shape, that should not be a problem. And the access drive, which we explained last time about the emergency access vehicles and being able to handle those. So from that perspective, I'll leave that information with you, and if there are concerns or questions, just let me know.
Okay. Thanks, Dave. Gallo?
Nothing further from me.
Okay. Jim?
Nothing from me.
Councilman Shute?
Just a couple of things. How are, so we're fully staffed now in the police? No, we're not. We're still
We're 4 short.
4 short. Okay. Yeah, I was seeing that the budget numbers for police were like, it looks like you guys are darn close, and hopefully you'll be able to.
We are very close, and we have 3, I believe, in the hiring process right now.
Okay, great.
We're very hopeful that we'll be full staff soon.
Excellent, excellent. And then the other thing is, how are preparations going for the Independence Day celebration?
I was watching you.
Uh-huh.
Jason, don't say anything, that might be canceled. No.
The 90,000, huh? No. That's next year,
Touche.
not this year. Next year, and I don't want it to be canceled next year.
Next week it'll be 100,000.
Uh-huh. Yes.
We're getting close. Just finished our playlist, going through writers, getting all the fine details. It's what, 3 weeks away?
Yes, sir.
It's coming quick.
Yep. Good. That's all I had.
Councilman McNear?
Several things.
Oh,
First off, I
really?
have to- yes. Thank you for giving me the grace to be not here last time. We've been, Casey, I think we've got you beat on mileage. In the last 60 days, Mina and I have put 17,000 miles on the side. Multiple trips to Iowa and Nebraska for family issues. And thank you, everyone, for the grace allowed. I really appreciate it. Matt, great job tonight, as always. Staff, excellent. Jason, we still love you.
Even if you don't have a job.
Oh, and because I wasn't here last time, I wanted to just say to the citizens of Gardner, doggone it, people, you make us all proud. We stood up, we rose up to situations that were very unfortunate for a lot of people. And as a community, we did an outstanding job of supporting those people. It just, my wife and I moved here 25 years ago for a reason. And our community has shown us that that was a very wise decision. And last thing I really wanted to ask and say thank you for tonight is our council. We had a very intense meeting, but we all got along. It was all good cheer, and we came to I believe, very good decisions at the end of the day. So thank you for working together and being a good group of people. Mr. Mark?
No, I get to tell.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Steve, go ahead, Mark.
Nothing new, but I will maybe tack onto your comments with your opportunity to shout out to our community. Is there, on that note, is there an opportunity for us or a need for us to go revisit our ordinances because of that situation, that in looking at it in a different light? Is there, I know maybe when Amy returns.
I was
that's
just
maybe
about ready to
the-
say.
Yeah,
that
Amy's
sounds
the
like a fun
person to
Amy
do it.
Master.
That is-
Ah.
on her laundry list of additional items. I don't know, I haven't started to go back and look. I don't know if anybody else has either. If there's, now looking at it in a different light, is there anything that we should maybe look at maybe doing differently? I don't know.
So we talked about today, we're working on an after-action report. Pam is drafting that, so we'll look at that and see if there's any recommendations that come out of that.
That's all I have.
Vice President?
Matt, great job. Thanks.
Yep.
Sorry you gotta work with these yahoos up here.
Wow.
Ooh.
Hey, I said these. It's all of us. But no, that's it. Thank you very much.
Council President?
I'm offended. No. I just wanted to clarify on the MABE development. So I think doing the sidewalk on the one side made more sense in that particular location because they don't have the parks, and that started weighing on me more. That's why I voted that way. I think this is another opportunity to kind of try that out and see how it goes. Hopefully we don't end up with egg on our face, but
I will say to that, sorry, but I also think that people at that price point are probably gonna value the amenities more than they would the sidewalk.
Yes.
So
I would agree.
that's where my head was at.
So Dave, just hold his feet to the fire and make sure the amenities are nice. I'm sure they will be. He had a good presentation, but
Matt's a guy who's
It
usually does what he
assists when
says.
they state things publicly like that, because as the final development plan comes through, we'll be looking for those kinds of things pretty closely. The final development plan, as you know, only goes to planning commission, so you won't see that return, but staff will be watching for those things to happen.
Great.
Well, I think also, I've known Matt for 25 years, worked with him back as far as Willow Springs, when we first started in Gardner,
Mm-hmm.
in the very early 2000s. And he says what he does and he does what he says.
Yep.
I've
That's
told
been
him.
that's been my impression too with him.
Anything else?
that's it.
I just want to add or talk about real quick the Be a Good Neighbor with the fireworks. Councilman, yeah, you.
Excellent
This-
job.
this one down here.
Hey.
Just say
Mark.
Councilman Mark.
Me.
Yeah.
Anyway, we have moved forward some of that stuff. Got headphones ordered. I think the dog treats are moving along. We also have signs that are going to say, light them off and have fun. By 11 o'clock, be done. So we're going to put those at each.
Like it.
There
Like
you go.
it.
I think that might have been a Danica thing, but we're going to put them at each.
Slogans work.
Give them to every tent so people can see it. It's got times and dates and everything else, and then there's a few extra we may try to post around town.
Yep.
Yard signs. So, yeah. That's all. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion McNair, second Deaton, we adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?